This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code KINDAFUNNY at checkout to get 10% off. Squarespace. Build it beautiful. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the GameOverGreggy show. I am one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer / seducer, Nick Scarpino.
Greg?
Yeah.
The handlebar mustache is creeping me out a little bit.
I was still thinking, it isn't a handlebar mustache for an audio listener, because that would have it come off and go up into the curls, right? And then
No,
that's
that's
the
not a
handlebar
handlebar
mustache.
mustache.
This
That-
is a handlebar.
that is a handlebar,
What's
yeah.
the one with what's the Sean Pitts creepy ass? I'm like
That's
fucking
like a
Sweeney
hipster,
Todd.
like
Sweeney
Oi.
Todd, yeah. There you go. It's a
I
very
tried to-
Victorian.
evil.
It's a twirly mustache.
But that has a twirly mustache.
That's what it is. It's a twirly
So
mustache.
this is a
Technical
handlebar
terms.
mustache. All right, interesting. Handlebars are too low, I think.
No, it's like a Harley handlebar.
Yeah,
Well, it's like a
upside down. Hulk Hogan. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
going
it's
for
a
the Hulk Hogan.
It's a Hogan. Yeah,
It's a Hogan.
All right.
I think you should keep it going.
No, this
No,
is done.
I don't.
I think you should keep
don't
going,
think
and then just spring it on us that you just dye it like blonde.
Yeah, sure.
One day just blonde.
Sure,
Because
sure.
nude beards are just even creepier.
Yeah.
I want you to know that.
Okay, I can do that for you. Sure, but I'm cutting it off after the shows today.
Okay, so we have roughly 3 hours for this whole thing to come to fruition.
Pretty
for me.
much, yeah. So you got to get cracking on that. Get Kevin
Okay.
out there to get some bleach.
Kevin, can you get some peroxide will work too?
Really?
It might burn his
Yeah.
face, but
Huh?
yeah, hydrogen peroxide will work.
You dye your hair with peroxide. I don't suggest it.
Over there, the Pride of Long Island, Colin Moriarty.
Good to be here with you, Greg.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Your beard looks good.
Thank you.
All right. Good talk.
Good talk. I'll see you later.
Over there, the Pier 1, Tim Gettys.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
All right, good.
Yeah.
And then right here, in the fifth chair,
Master of disaster.
a man you know well, even though you probably don't know him, the genius from the Kind of Funny press conference,
The
James Schuler.
21-year-old.
Thank you, Greg.
Super genius
Who
is what we
made the
called
app?
him.
He made the forums. He makes Kind of Funny run when Kevin's not making the other side of it run.
Or toppling it completely because
He hasn't
trips over
toppled it yet.
everything.
It's his birthday. Be nice to him.
Happy birthday, Kevin.
Happy birthday, Kevin.
James, give us an introduction. Who are you?
Yeah, my name is James Schuler. I'm quick background about myself. I'm a TL 20 under 20 fellow, OIC grad, and I'm actually in Techstars right now. So
Wait, Techstars, is that like Dancing with the Stars, but for...
basically for
Okay,
tech.
cool.
No,
Holy
it's
shit,
a,
that'd be amazing. It's
yeah.
a bunch of tech guys trying to dance.
it's
That'd be awesome. We should do that show.
Okay.
that's kind of the equivalent of the basketball leagues that they do for tech people.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty ugly.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Not a
I
lot
can't
of
play
sweet dunks?
basketball for shit.
No,
So.
no.
No, but what is Techstars? I want to know.
It's one of the most competitive tech incubators. So Y Combinator, which is in Mountain View, is the most competitive. You have companies that came out of there like Reddit, Dropbox, Airbnb. Then you have Parse, Heroku, and a few other ones. But Techstars is the second one to them.
The only time I've ever heard incubators has been in like Marvel Comics when they're referring to Reed Richards.
What about chickens? When you got little
And
chicks.
it's,
the
or
chicks.
that too. But I'm gonna put him with the Reed
That's
Richards.
fine.
not
Oh,
the
no, I
chickens.
understand that. No,
Yeah.
he's a smart guy. He's not
Yeah.
a chicken hatcher over here.
Oh, well, you don't know.
This is exciting.
So you don't know that.
It's a new startup.
Sure. So you're fascinating in general because you're very smart. Clearly, you're so smart you don't have to go to school. You're making millions of dollars out on your own as a 21-year-old. Why waste your time building our app and forum? It seems like yeah, you are Reed Richards and you're wasting your time and your talents right here. You need to go out there and get the cosmic
Stretch it out.
dust to become stretchy.
Yeah, so I've been a big fan of you guys since you guys were doing Beyond.
Never heard of it.
And But you're not even going to say Beyond? You really forgot about the
When
whole
you
thing.
say
You don't
no,
say it
no,
when it's
no.
for the
When it's
title.
in context, you don't say it.
Okay.
It's when you do it, you're like, well, beyond this, then.
Okay.
Yeah. Which makes it even more annoying. Because it would be
Just
one
because
thing.
you've never been on a popular show, don't hold it against me.
I was on Knockin' Boots once.
Oh!
So yeah, so I've been.
God damn it.
Nick had a near-death experience today, so he's a bit
Holy
wacky.
shit, I
Let the
did.
man speak.
I did. I'll get to that in a second. Sorry, continue, Jim.
No, it's fine.
Before we immediately start talking over you.
So yeah, so I've been a huge fan, and I basically reached out to Colin and just said that I wanted to get involved any way I could. So I offered my skills, and in a few weeks we had everything running. And
It's been so from my perspective, we get that. I'm like, well, and then we're having this conversation. Like, should we trust this guy? Should we trust this guy? I'm like, what choice do we have? We have to have forums. The fans demand it. The best friends out there want to talk, and Facebook just doesn't cut it. No, you've been awesome to work with, man. And it's been amazing. Kind of, it's very rare when you find someone who is as motivated as you are to like make something cool. And that's why it's been really fun over the last few months. And you brought everything together in a surprisingly fast and seamless and painless way, which it very seldom is in our world.
Yeah.
Usually it's the opposite.
Totally.
Everything takes a long time, and Kevin has to lose an arm.
And it ends up like just a disaster and not how you want it. What's cool with working with you is it's always been like, you'll be like, what do you want? And I'll tell you what I want. And then you're just like, okay, how about that plus all of this shit? And I'm like, damn, that's way better than what I said. And that's rare because we're fucking egotistical bastards.
Yeah,
and we
Tim
always
thinks-
want things our way.
Tim thinks everything he does is the best thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
'cause it is.
So no, it's
Don't
not
encourage
because then you come and you fucking make it so much better. I'm like, damn, this is awesome, and it's been fun. I like it. You're a good dude, and you're on the same wavelength with us in some ways. I don't want to disrespect you by saying
Yeah,
that.
no.
No offense.
Yeah, no offense. But just say it like it's
He's
you
like
got
a
you got a
scientist who
good
listens
vision.
to the chimps for enjoyment. You're like, we're on your level.
It's like they're playing with their shit again. It's so funny when they do that.
So I was actually in a similar situation. The first company that I started in high school, it was well, I actually ended up leaving it, even though it was doing extremely well.
Right.
I just didn't, I didn't feel the desire to do it. It was in healthcare, but right now
Are you
they're doing-
Kaiser?
No, I wish.
Jesus, yeah.
But we built a system that's basically integrated into like all of the doctor notes around the United States, so people can check their health insurance. Because
Gotcha.
Before this, you had to call up, and they'd wait till the end of the day after you had a visit, and then they'd call all of the insurance companies, and it would take forever. And every time the insurance company picks up the phone, they lose $3
They lose
because
$3.
the calling centers are so expensive.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's a great way to get paid on both ends. But I resigned from that company even when it was doing really, really well because I wanted to do something else. So I totally respect your decisions to leave, and I think it's you're just doing a startup. It's not all that different from what I do, and I think it's very important that I treat it the same way that I would treat one of my startups.
Well, thank you.
Baller. Holy shit.
Yeah.
He told me today, by the way, I learned this, was going to go to Northeastern, decided not to go to college, scorned Northeastern, and did his own thing instead.
Yeah.
And now look at him.
You know what? Northeastern has never been the same.
No,
Since.
no.
They'll never recover.
Never bounce back.
No.
We're not. No. Well, the funny thing is that if you went to Northeastern, there could have been an alternate history timeline where you put them on the map for tech, because right now they're really not on the map. Like the biggest thing for tech that ever came out of Northeastern is Napster. So
Oh, yeah, that
The
was a
most
good one.
important thing in the world.
yeah, Napster came out
That
of
went
there.
well.
That one had a lot of longevity too.
But like we're no more for other things.
Yeah.
So like engineering and all that kind of stuff.
hockey.
Colin Moriarty.
And hockey, yeah. And me, of course. So there's an alternate history timeline where you could have went there and had and had your own building by the time you were 25 there. But you scorned Northeastern.
It would have looked exactly like the Avengers Tower, Stark Tower.
That's what I was going for,
Would have been
actually.
dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, in all honesty, I think if I went to Northeastern, I wouldn't have studied computer science. Because in high school, I already knew a lot about computer science. And going to college, they don't really know. You'll learn a lot about theories, but not applying it. So I probably would have done something completely different, like finance.
Cool. You don't seem to need help in any of these things, so I think you made the right choice.
Yeah,
You seem to be
you're
doing
good.
okay.
Plus, Northeastern is a lot of money, so you're saving yourself a couple $100,000 from not being there.
Yeah, you made a
Yeah.
good call. You're like, I can either make money or spend money.
I feel like that's an interesting concept though, because a lot of people don't think that, right? Like your path to success is always outlined as you get good grades in high school, then you go to a good college, then you go to a good college, do 4 years, get a great GPA, intern, and then go work for a company, and that's what you do. And that doesn't have to be that. It's never actually had to be that way, truth be told. But I think the popular perception is that still, and it's pretty fascinating that there really is no substitute for practical knowledge and experience.
Yeah.
There just really isn't. There never will be.
Absolutely, and I think that's what excited me about Northeastern was the co-op program. But I mean, the way Peter Thiel puts it, which is why he started the fellowship that I'm in, is there's a time. Companies are like waves if you think about it that way. There's a time and a place to catch it, and once it passes, it's gone. You can catch it too early or too late. So his whole theory is not bashing college necessarily. It's
Right.
more that you're losing time. If you have an idea for a startup, do it now. Why wait till you're done with college? Because it's too late.
Because by then, yeah, it'll be obsolete, most likely.
When he did PayPal, he had to do it when he was in college. So
God. What was I doing in college? Taco Bell. No, Del Taco. Actually, that was when I was on
Just
a
eating and not
taco
inventing
kick.
it.
That was basically it. I was eating.
Well,
I was
invented
consuming
Del
other
Taco.
people. Oh my god, I'd love that. I would totally wear that as a badge of honor. No, but that's very true. And it's sort of, I mean, we can sympathize, right? Like we wanted to do this, where we felt like this was, in January was a good time for us to sort of leave and take advantage of some of the things out there and form our company. That's not exactly the most groundbreakingly unique idea anyone's ever come up with, but it's one of those things where like now is the right time because I think a lot of people are empowered to like stick with us and watch us just kind of
They're
do this
getting on
little
the
grassroots
wave.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, our wave is just a raindrop still falling to the ocean to become a wave. You're smart. Is that how waves are formed?
No, that's not.
The ripples up this.
That's if I was informed correctly. That is
Yeah,
how
thank you.
waves
Thank you
are
very much,
created.
yeah.
I think it has something
As
to
a
do with
physicist.
seagulls.
Yes, I'm not a
Seagulls.
scientist, but pretty sure that's
I,
correct.
don't know. I was just gonna say I like being around people that you're obviously a very smart person and you seem to you have a good left brain on, and I always am always envious of people with that are left brained, like very left brained, because I feel like I'm significantly right brained, which is probably what we all are in our own way, like in this company.
Which one's the creative one?
Right brain.
Yeah, I'm right
And
brain.
it's not to say left brain isn't creative. It's just left brain is mathematical, left brain is engineering, left brain is STEM, left brain is all of these kinds of things. And when you confuse that with right brain, which is clearly what you've done, because there's a level of creativity in making an app or making forms or having vision. In other words, you're Wozniak and Jobs, like those two mentalities kind of put together. Like Jobs was really more of the right brain and Wozniak was the left brain. And they work together well. I'm always really envious and jealous of people that have a left brain that works because I love physics, I love chemistry, I love engineering and all those kinds of things. I like reading about it, but I never understand the math behind it. I never understand the proofs behind it. And I always get real, I always have a lot of appreciation for people like you because these are the most important people out there. Like I love creative types and stuff like that, and it's important to be a poet, it's important to be a musician, all those kinds of things are things that we love, but the people that are making the shit that you use I think are still very underappreciated in this society. And that's why I always tell people like, yeah, major in history like I did if you want, but you really should try to major in biochemistry or electrical engineering or mathematics or and then you turn into this and that's good. Otherwise you turn into that. Right here.
In
other words, much appreciation, much props.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. I'm obviously very excited to be here.
Good. We're
Thank you
excited
for
to have
coming,
you here,
man.
man.
If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Game Over Greggy Show. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table, each bringing a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, you can head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, throw us a few bucks in support, and get each and every episode a couple days early. A full week for the whole thing. If you don't want to give us any money, no big deal. Go to youtube.com/kindafunny, where each topic is broken out day by day, and then the entire thing posts on MP3 services and that same YouTube channel each and every Friday. James, you're the guest. You get to go first.
Okay. So, with the recent success of things like Tesla and all the new battery-powered companies that are coming out, I wanted to see what you guys thought of a society where we no longer need gas, and what is going to happen to the countries that are solely reliant on oil.
This
is a great
It's
question.
a great question. I just watched a great documentary on Netflix called Pump. Have you seen this?
No.
It talks about, well, it goes back into the history of gas and why we got on the gas standard as the United States, and obviously had to do a lot with prohibition. And originally, which I did not know because I did not really pay attention ever in school, was that one little misstep or step in a different direction. If someone had stood up to Rockefeller in Congress, and we would probably be powering our automobiles with alcohol right now, if not some other form of biodiesel fuel. It's fascinating. It's going to happen, for one thing, because crude oil is a finite resource. We can't make more of it. Like we can just go out there and grow corn and make that. I think we need to get on that. I think we need to get on that as fast as humanly possible. And it's even to the point where Tim has a hybrid car, right? Don't you have a Prius?
Well, yeah, hybrid.
It's a hybrid, right? But I have often thought, because I have a Honda, and when you live in the San Francisco area, it does not behoove you to buy a new car because your bumper will immediately look like
What will it look like?
It'll look like a fucking Wolverine attacked it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say it looked like
Why?
a Jackson Pollock.
I was trying to get
painting,
you
but
there.
Yeah.
Oh, because of the hills?
no, it's
What's
because
happening?
no one knows how to park in this city, and the
okay.
way you park in San Francisco is by hitting the person's bumper in front of you and then kind of coming back
Then
into
hitting
it.
the guy
And
behind
then me
you.
behind you, and you're like, okay,
you
you go boom, boom, boom. I'm equidistant. I'm good. You get out of your car, and then you forget to curb your tire, and you get a ticket.
So what do you think is going to happen to the countries that rely on that, though? Because certain countries that's their only way of
They're only exports.
You're talking about the
that's
Middle-
what I was
you're talking
gonna
about the
say.
Middle East,
Yeah, I was going to say.
basically.
So you mean like Venezuela? You mean Saudi Arabia? You mean Kuwait? You mean these,
Yeah, I mean even the UAE, like now they have tourism and stuff, but all of their money is in gas.
right? It's interesting. I mean, I'm of the mind that. I love these weird documentaries too. Who Killed the Electric Car is still
Great
That's a
one.
great
Great
one.
still
one.
That's
one
an
of my favorite
absolutely great
documentaries.
one.
And that's all about how like we could have been off of gas 20 years ago with cars anyway. But like all this shit conspiratorial kind of shit happened.
You can be off gas. Like that's the other thing too. In this documentary, you can be off gas. We can be off gas now. I think they were talking about how they brought up. I think it's Brazil, as they are 100% self-sufficient. And the reason they are is because they offer cars that are switch cars. I think they're called or flex cars, where basically you can choose gas or ethanol, and there's a little switch that like you hit. It's just a computer that changes what tank it's taking. Changes a little bit of how the engine works and how it processes the fuel, but that's pretty much it. And they're 100% self-sufficient right now.
Yeah, ethanol's not the answer either, though. Ethanol is like a huge conspiracy in itself because we have such a glut of corn in the United States that we don't know what the fuck to do with it. Yeah. And it takes just as much gas to make ethanol as it does to just use the gas outright. But I remember my dad's like really into this stuff too, and I remember my dad talking about the fuel cell and all this stuff when I was a kid, and it just has never happened because there's such entrenched interests in keeping the oil companies afloat, and we see that constantly, and obviously the merger of ExxonMobil and all of these kinds of things, and then what happened in the Gulf with BP, and they kind of just got away with it. Like these companies just are huge; they're megalithic. I think the technology is obviously out there and has been out there for a long time, but I also think that there's a lot of doomsday shit about oil. I do believe that. Our use of oil is destructive to the environment. I think that's obvious.
Yes.
But I also think that
about
there's
the fact
a
that
lot
it's
more
rained in
oil
6
than a lot of people are admitting. Still, I think that we have not hit peak oil. And
Well, there's a lot of oil in the United States we haven't been able to drill.
and
Right?
there's natural
And
gas
Alaska.
and all that kind of stuff too. But like the Saskatchewan, like up in like Western Canada, they have a fucking asinine amount of oil. So it's not. That's why they wanted to cut the pipeline to the Gulf of Mexico through the United States, and for some reason we don't want them to do that because we don't like money. So, and they'll just send it to China instead. It's not like that was the whole thing that bothered me too. Is like everyone gives them a hard time about digging that oil up because it's very dirty oil, and they have to do a lot to get it out of the ground. It's very destructive. But like they're basically like we're taking it out of the ground, so we'll either give it to you or we'll give it to China. And
We have
we're
to
gonna
have principles, Colin.
No, we don't.
No dirty oil.
Whatever. It's not going to stop them.
I know.
So what's going to happen to those countries? It's a super interesting question that I think a lot of people, including me, have never really thought about because Saudi Arabia, for instance, is built on oil money.
Yep.
And that's basically it. So. And they still have a shit ton of oil. I think that it's going to be somewhere in the middle. I think we're going to wean off of the oil, and I think it's going to happen over a couple hundred years.
Yeah, I was
because
gonna say.
don't think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I should preface this question. Let's say over the span of a month, some sort of breakthrough technology comes out. Obviously, we need to change the tech and everything, but where we just don't need them. And what I think is it's going to lead to more extremist groups to be able to pop up because they have nothing else. The one lifeline in the world is just cut.
That's
That's a very interesting point.
Unless a lot of people have said this, unless it is a slow progression, like Colin's talking about over the span of decades.
Yeah, because then we'll try to
destroy
something else.
It would basically destroy the world, the economy.
That's what I think. I think that could lead to World War III.
It would be a very bad thing, and you have to understand 100% of our infrastructure. Well, not 100%, but a large portion of our infrastructure right now in the United States is run off of gas.
Even
We're
Russia.
talking about. Don't even think about the cars. It's not about us and getting from point A to point B and how I get to work. It's about how does the food get to Safeway, right? How does the food get to the stores? How does gas get to the gas stations, right? You need gas for all of that. All of our infrastructure is there, so you can't. In the span of a month, we wouldn't be able to obviously take ourselves off of it. But the other issue is what happens if the United States becomes self-sufficient and we no longer need foreign oil. And not even that we get off gas, is that we just don't need foreign oil anymore.
Yeah.
What happens to the rest of the world where there's a massive surplus that comes in?
Yeah.
And then how does that work,
They'll find other markets. I mean it would cause oil to drop in price significantly, but you have Russia manufacturing oil. China's a huge buyer of oil. Obviously, Russia's giving a lot of its oil to Eastern Europe and Western Europe. I mean, that's when Russia invaded Ukraine. The reason Western Europe didn't want to get involved is because they were afraid they were going to be cut off.
Yeah.
So oil, and they would have been cut off. So they couldn't Russia invaded. We saw Russia invade a country and then take a piece of it before our very eyes in 2013. That happened. You know what I mean? And everyone's like, "What the fuck?" No one does this anymore. And but they just went into Crimea and took it.
Yeah.
And we're like, "This is ours now."
Yeah.
And everyone was handcuffed because all the NATO countries and Europe are like, we get our oil from Russia. We are fucked.
Yeah.
You know, like, and Russia knew that. They're not stupid. So it's the self-sufficiency with the United States, you know, it reminds me of World War II. The reason World War II began in the reason there was strife in the Pacific was because there was an oil embargo against Japan. The United States cut Japan off from American oil. And it caused this whole crisis in Eastern Asia about where they were going to get their oil from, and so they attacked us. And obviously, it's a little more geopolitically concentrated and complicated than that. But we've been fighting over oil for almost 100 years, and where you're going to get the oil from, and keeping your oil pipelines open because it's always been important to the economy. I think eventually we're going to have an economy where, at least in the United States, where we have. First of all, I think we're going to transition to natural gas. I think that's the most obvious thing to do. We have a fucking asinine amount of natural gas in the Dakotas, in the middle of the country. And then we have to start researching things like, you know, I hate to say it, but like we need nuclear power in the United States.
Yeah.
We need hydroelectric power in the United States. In California, we have all these crises with water. We have no desalination plants. You know what I mean? Like there's all these obvious things that you can do. Just put desalination plants every 50 miles down the California coast and you're fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so like there's all of these different things that we have to do. It's hard, and it's about conquering entrenched interests and about getting over lobby groups that have infinite amounts of money.
So that's the thing, though. Can that ever happen? The lobby groups are the ones fucking everything up, and it seems like that's going to keep happening. Or is it finally that everybody understands that?
Well, one big thing, talking about green tech for a second, is that we have good green tech. Solar panels work. All these hydroelectricity works. The bigger problem actually comes down to how we store the power. We don't have a battery strong enough to be able to hold all the power that has runoff.
Yet.
Yeah.
But solar power is considered impractical
Can you
too in
get
terms
on
of the amount of space it takes up, right? Like
Yeah, but you basically
That's because no one invests in figuring out how to make solar technology actually.
Yeah,
more
so they
viable.
make sculptures, solar panel sculptures that are more jagged and stuff like that, and it collects more sunlight because it reflects off of everything.
Yeah, you get refraction.
The problem is a flat panel is not the best way to get sunlight. The sun moves, so it's very
right. Well, you have to,
impractical.
You have to move them like an array of satellites, right? You'd have to move them or whatever.
Yeah, rotate them.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I also wonder in terms of transitioning how much NIMBYism is affecting things too. And what I mean by that, not in my backyard.
NIMBYism. Let me try to.
It's not in my backyard.
Let me try to define
Okay.
that. The Secret of NIM was a movie that came out when I was a kid.
Spot on.
NIMBYs are people that not in my backyard. It's the
Right.
people that like don't want any change around them. And I bring that up because on Long Island we have a thing called the Long Island Sound, which is the water between Connecticut and Long Island, and it's like a triangular piece of water. I was
Do you
born
call
in
it the
Port-
Long Island Sound?
It's called the Long Island
Yeah,
Sound.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why, why can't you just call it a river or some sort of a stream? The Long Island Stream is the way. No, it's got to be called the Long Island Sound. That way, for idiots on the West Coast, they'll never know what the fuck we're talking
They'll
about.
think we're fucking.
Islander-
they'll think
I
we're
know
cool
what
as
he's talking
shit.
about.
Yeah, you understand.
But you're from the
Westchester.
East
Yeah,
Coast.
you're from New York. So the Islanders farm team is called the Long Island Sound Tigers. But
A lot of tigers on this triangle of water.
The more you know.
I don't know.
Learn
But
anything every day with them.
I was born in Port Jefferson, which is like a nice town on the North Shore on the Long Island Sound. And over there, they wanted to build. There was a talk about building a huge, like, set of wind turbines in the Sound. And their argument was like, yeah, it's not going to be very pretty, but like if we build all these, then we're going to have like a ton of power. Because we used to have nuclear power on Long Island that was like disastrous. There's documentaries about that. And then we've moved over to like getting our our electricity. Not Chernobyl, but could have been. There's like a lot of fucked up shit on the East Coast or on the east side of Long Island you don't want to fuck with. So the NIMBYs over there were like, no, that's ugly and we don't want that. So now we're mired in, still using the same old grid and the same old structure. Meanwhile, Long Island could have had a bunch of power just by putting these fucking, these turbines in the Long Island Sound, but they didn't want to because it's ugly. And my whole argument was like, that makes us look technologically advanced. That makes us look like we're taking a step. I understand the Long Island Sound is sacred to you and you paid all this money to live on the North Shore of Long Island and you want to see Connecticut from there. But the fact of the matter is, this is what needs to be done. And that's the point I'm making. Hard decisions need to be made to wean people off of oil, to wean people off of these things, and to say, listen, like nuclear power, yeah, what happened in Japan is tragic. What happened in Chernobyl, obviously tragic, but it doesn't have to be like that, you know?
Yeah.
And here's why. Let's build them and we'll show you. Obviously, the China syndrome's real and things like that can happen, but it's not.
Yeah, you deal with the waste of the nuclear plants, though. That's the problem. That's why natural gas is so much more enticing because it burns so damn clean. There's like no way. There's no byproduct.
Yeah, but in
of it.
order to get to the natural gas, that's the whole
destroy
problem.
the world.
Yeah, I mean, the liquid that's in
causing earthquakes.
fracking is like the same thing that's in like diapers, the same chemicals. So you're just pumping that stuff into the ground.
That's terrible.
So like, I don't think that's really a solution either. You know, with Tesla's Powerwall, that seems very interesting to me as the battery tech progresses. That you can, you know, power an entire house based off of just a $7,000 battery.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to be, to answer Greg's original question, is that like it won't. The change is going to have to come, and it's going to have to come from the actual oil companies most likely, and it's going to have to come when they do that cost benefit analysis one day and go, guys, it's actually smarter for us now to start. I guarantee that Chevron and Shell, the corporations, know exactly what's next after oil. I guarantee they're already doing that research. They've got that R&D done. They know exactly what next technology they're going to push that works with their current infrastructure.
Techron.
What's that?
Techron.
Techron.
Right?
It's
Just gonna
better
add
for your
Techron.
car.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. As soon as that cost benefit analysis flips to where it's just too much of a pain in the ass to get oil out of the ground, or it costs too much and no one's buying it anymore, and we have this big uprising, then they'll go, okay, everyone, guess what? We're moving over to whatever.
I don't think they're going to be the ones to do it.
You don't think so?
I don't think so either. It reminds me of the commercial.
They're too powerful. They won't ever let it happen otherwise.
Yeah, but
It has
they
to
don't
come
have
from
the
them.
tech. I mean, this is just coming down to tech at this point. Is that they've been sitting pretty for a long time, and now there's small companies that are literally making more progression than they are with, you know, things like graphene batteries and different things like that. It's not them. It's smaller companies.
You don't think they'll gobble them up and then eventually every gas station? My hope is that every gas station in the 50 years from now is just an electronic charging station of some sort, or you have
There's neither of those 50 years from now.
really.
50
Yeah,
years
well-
from now, your car should be able to run for 30 years without anything.
You think so?
Yeah.
There's no profit in that.
That's
That'll never happen.
valid.
Well, that's
the
and that,
problem.
and that brings us back to who killed the electric car, because that whole thing is about how these companies bought up all of these companies that were doing this little research to just kill them. And I
Happens all the time.
I watch Nova a lot, which is like one of my favorite shows, and oil companies always like advertise on there, and they're talking, because Nova has like a very more left wing environmentally
Let me
conscious.
just try to define Nova. Nikki Nova
You don't know what
know
Nova
Nova
is?
is a
On PBS?
is a diva, right?
You don't know what Nova is?
No, I know Nova.
Okay,
Go
I was gonna
ahead.
say
Just fine.
Nova's been on for like 40 years.
I'm trying to interject some humor into this conversation.
There's
It's not
nothing
working.
funny about
Let's
it.
Stop
There's
now.
nothing funny about it.
It's
Kevin,
another one of those depressing
get
conversations
coffee?
where we talk about all the things that need to be solved.
It's not
solutions they won't
depressing
happen.
though. It's exciting because like
You're talking about hard choices and uprisings, and we are
And
lazy
World War III,
Americans.
I think, was
I picked
mentioned.
the
We're
best
lazy
question.
Americans. Like, this is the
No,
problem.
it's-
It'll have to be so easy.
but
that Tesla will have to beat you over the head with it and be like, this is so easy. Why are you not doing this?
That's
And
true.
then the
But
government
point-
will get involved.
This is the conundrum with the oil companies. The point I was trying to make is that on Nova, these oil companies often advertise, but they advertise all the alternate fuel things they're researching, and they'll show like a bunch of mathematical equations, and no one cares. The
Lab
point
coats.
is that when we hit peak oil, and when we demonstrably hit peak oil, this also benefits the oil companies. I feel like a lot of the oil companies want to hit peak oil because
then they'll just charge a shit.
yeah,
ton
because
for it
then
and-
then oil manufacturing will go down. They can start closing down a bunch of their plants because there's not any more oil to get out, or less and less oil to get out of the ground, and they're charging more and more for it anyway. So their infrastructure shrinks and their profits go up. So like there's an end game for oil all the way through the last drop of oil being extracted from the ground.
But
and
don't
like,
you think
so they're in it for the long run, because I really don't think we're going to be out of oil for over 100 years. So like
I
it's,
thought they said it was only like, don't we only have like, I guess maybe it was
no,
like
they
20
know
years
we were
of
going to hit
reserves
peak oil in the
left.
70s.
Yeah, this is the problem, is that they
It's that
always
we're not
think this
hitting
is
it.
coming.
Like we're not hitting peak oil.
Yeah, we just keep finding more. I mean, even if you so the way you have to view the oil companies is the same way car manufacturers actually. So what does it take for them to do a recall? They have to
Lots of
not
deaths.
not
Lots
one
of-
death.
lots and lots of
They have
deaths.
to take the settlement costs of all of the possible deaths from a family and compare it to the cost of the recall. And if it is a penny cheaper to just have people die and pay the fees, then they'll do that. And the oil companies are going to do this.
That was in Fight Club, wasn't it?
It was in Fight Club.
I love that. I love
But,
that. I love that part where
but
he's like, "This is how this
that's
works."
true.
No,
That's
it's
how it
100%
works.
true. No, I mean it's all economics, but on the same level, I have to think that the oil companies have that contingency plan eventually, right? Where like they're like, okay, this is a company that's existed for 100 and some odd years,
Yeah.
right? So we're going to want to continue to exist for another 100 years. How do we do that? There's got to be people that are like, okay, well, here are our projections. We're going to try to push this through contracts from being able to eventually get all of the oil out of the United States, because we don't like to ruin our own backyard. We'd rather ruin South America or the Middle East. Eventually, they're going to run out, though. So what is that plan next? Because
I don't know if they
Shell
have it, man.
Station's not going to be... Well, 100 years from now, if Shell's... Because you have to also factor in the fact that our population growth is multiplying exponentially every year, right? So, like, you have... Kevin, you are the man. Look at this guy. On his birthday, gets me a cup of coffee. I cherish you. I cherish you. And you brought up China. Well, China is the biggest group of consumers on the planet right now, right? And in this documentary that I watched, they talk about how you can't get cars because the pollution's so bad. You have to have a lottery system for license plates. So you can buy a car if you want, but you can't drive it unless you have a license plate. The license plates, they literally have, not a lottery system, excuse me, an auction system where you have to go in and you have to bid on them. And that can cost you upwards of thousands of dollars just to get the privilege of then being able to go buy a car.
Wow.
But I imagine someone's trying to figure out how to get around that. And that person's probably the Ford Motor Company or some other, company
See, I don't
that's
know,
trying to
man.
sell more
Like when you're
cars.
in the company, like you're just so ingrained in what you're doing that it's hard to kind of look outside and fix that stuff.
It's not a fix; it's a profit margin.
Yeah,
It's-
it is. But I also feel like, to Tim's point, I mean, you're making a good point. Like, I'm sure that Shell and ExxonMobil and all these guys are spending billions of dollars researching alternate fuel, but I don't think it's things that they can extract from the ground, or it's things that they can make. It's not them saying like, well, we can just invest in solar panels now. Like,
yeah.
doing
But my
research.
guess would be that at some point you're going to see exactly that thing that happened with the electric car is still happening, right? Every time someone makes a battery that can carry a car for an entire year, that's never happened before, or can carry a car for, let's say 1,000 miles. There's someone that's going like this, buy that technology and put it on the shelf.
Yeah, but you can say
Every
that.
time.
I mean, obviously, I'm just using Tesla because they're the most
Sure, they're the
recent
most
example of
visible.
this.
Yeah.
The new Tesla goes 350 miles. That's like better than a tank of gas. So I think that people realize that it's more profitable for them not to sell.
Well,
ride that
but
wave.
you also have this crazy. I mean, we're in the technological revolution right now. So you've got Elon Musk, who is throwing caution to the wind at every given second, going like, no, we're going to make this work. We're gonna do every single thing we have to make this work, not because of profitability, because I'm already a fucking billionaire. So who cares? I'm going to do this because it's the right thing and it's cool and it's something that the world needs right now. But how many people are ballsy enough to do that? I'll be honest with you right now. If someone offered me $100 for Greg, I would sell him. Heartbeat. I'd keep
I'll give you
Portillo though.
$100 for Greg.
I don't know.
He's yours. Sold.
How am I the car? Am I
You would be the
company?
technology at this
Oh,
point,
okay.
and I would just sell you in a heartbeat.
You're an asset.
Okay, that's fine.
the bigger question to me, and it's a more systemic issue, is this. You have different kinds of economies around the world, different kind of governmental structures. Then you also have businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the United States, we're a republic, we're very free market, and we have companies like SpaceX, for instance, trying to solve the problems that NASA can't solve.
Yep.
So what I'm wondering is, with it, when we move off of oil and come to substance X, whatever it is, or whatever solution we find for power,
limit zero.
is it going to come from the heavy hand of an authoritarian government like, say, China, that basically can control its population? Is it going to come from a government more like ours that has really no power, or is it going to come from companies that then show the market that these things matter and will work? And it's probably going to be the third solution. And for that to happen, it's going to take time. It's going to take lots of time, and it's probably also going to take a catastrophic thing like peak oil.
Yeah.
And until we reach, and by the way, people that don't know the definition of peak oil. Peak oil is the idea that there is a day, whatever that is, that the most oil ever taken out of the ground will happen that day, and then will fall from there forever.
Yep.
It will never reach that height again. That's called peak oil, and that was a very popular thing in kind of the mid to late 19th or 20th century.
That's when
they
gas
were like,
prices really start to go up.
exactly,
on the day.
because then we know that there's nothing left.
There's nothing left. Yeah.
That like everything, so like you take out 100 barrels a day. I mean, this is just an example, 100 barrels a day, and then it's never over 100 barrels ever again.
Yeah.
Then it's 98, then it's 96,
Right.
and before you know, you have 4. And that's what I'm saying. Like that benefits oil companies, and I think they want that to happen. But so I think the solution is going to be the third leg. Authoritarian governments have the power to do it because they can control the population, like you were saying with China with their auction systems, for instance. But they don't have the ingenuity to do it.
They have
ingenuity.
but they have the necessity to do
They
it,
do,
and that's
but-
why it's a fascinating idea.
They do, but we suffer from the opposite problem, which is that we don't have the necessity; we just have the ingenuity.
Right, but if
and so you're
China-
going to have to find the middle ground, and the middle ground are the private companies like Tesla. That
See, I think let's put it this way: if China all of a sudden said, "Look, our pollution level is so dangerous right now that we have to switch over," they will never do this. But if they said we have to switch over to the electric car right now, like you can't sell a car in China anymore unless it is half electrical, then I guarantee within a couple of years span, every single thing in the United States would be that same thing. Because that market would dictate our market. Ford would be like, oh, it's a huge market over there. We're selling it. Let's push it on America right now. America has to have it too.
and they
Then it
do
becomes
love
thing.
American cars over in China, which is awesome.
They do.
Yeah, they love it.
That's better than those Italian cars. No offense to my
The Fiat?
grandparents, but
I saw it drive underwater to come here.
that wasn't real.
What?
It's in the text, and big bold
What?
letters says, "Don't drive your car underwater.
What?
You will drown like an idiot."
It said that in the text.
Is it right? Well, I'm paraphrasing. No, but Colin, that's true. But I honestly, we all know the same thing. It's going to be a slow progression, right? It's going to be like any other thing is, where people are going to fight it, and then people will adopt it, and in the span of like 50, I think they said, what's it going to be, like 4 or 5 decades? It's going to take to actually get the United States alone just on the idea of the alternate fuel source.
But I mean,
Like,
are there people fighting it? I mean, I guess I'm very
Yeah,
biased
people with
coming
their
from San
cars.
it's not that
Francisco,
people
but
are
it's like
it's not that people are fighting it, but let's take a small example of how human beings, especially in the United States and especially in California, react to when a government tells them they have to do something. About 2 years ago, the government, the San Francisco city, and now it's a statewide thing, by the way, I think, said that we're going to charge you 10 cents for a bag every time you go anywhere. If you want whatever you just bought to be put into a bag, by the way, you can't get plastic anymore, which I agree with. We're going to charge you 10 cents. Oh my God, that was infuriating to me. For the longest time, I'm like, fuck you. I just bought like $200 worth of merchandise at the store, and you're going to charge me 10 cents for a bag? And it took about a year and a half to the point where I'm like, you know what? Now I'm bringing bags everywhere I go with me. And the bags I bring are better, and they're sustainable because I reuse them, and it's less waste, and I'm not wasting any money. But there was a part of me that just revolted against that because as Americans, especially Americans, we don't like being told what to do. We don't like when someone says, hey, that gas guzzler, you can't use that anymore. Oh, could you imagine? Everyone that has a big truck or like a Mustang or a Camaro or even me, I'd be like, no, I have to use this. I don't have money to buy another car. I have to have my Honda has to last me another 5 years.
Yeah.
Or I have to sell Greg for a much higher margin
Thank
than
you.
$100.
Yeah.
$200 for Greg Miller.
It'll be interesting though because the symbol of excess before the crash was the Hummer. Remember in like 2004,
yeah.
2006,
Schwarzenegger had like 8 of them.
gas was cheap as shit, and everyone I remember seeing Hummers everywhere, and you don't see them anymore because it's almost embarrassing to drive one of those now because
Absolutely.
it's a symbol of excess, of pre-crash excess. You know what I mean? Small changes like that will happen, but I think that to James's point, the more interesting question is what happens to the countries that have economies dependent on oil production. And again, the big ones to me are Venezuela, Russia, and especially the Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and all these
Even
other countries.
Turkey.
And the answer is they're fucked because they sacrificed, or I think smartly so, maybe diversifying their economy because they were making hand over fist money, on oil for decades and decades and decades, and the rest of the world took an interest in them. Like in terms of their protection and all these things, we're in Kuwait for no reason other than to protect their oil pipelines.
Yeah.
So
that was another fascinating part of that documentary. Sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but they showed the entire Middle East. They showed all of the oil, like where the oil was brought out of the ground, and then they showed the American military base that was like within a 10-mile radius of them, and it's almost 1 for 1. It's crazy.
Yeah, because we know if something catastrophic happened in the Persian Gulf, especially, and like we weren't able to get oil out of there and extract oil out of there, we'd be
screwed.
Fucked.
Screwed.
We have a reserve. But it's only a few months worth. So we always like stock away like 3 months worth of oil or whatever. And there's probably strategic reserve is probably way more for the military and stuff like that in case we get invaded or something. But those countries are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And like we aren't, because we have a bunch of oil that we haven't even tapped yet.
Right.
Plus we have all the technological advancements happening in the world, or most of them are happening here.
Yeah.
So
Specifically within a 20-mile or 50-mile radius where we're sitting.
yeah, I mean, so we're okay, and it is a scary thought to think about the revolutions that are going to happen in the Middle East. They have a high standard of living in in a lot of these countries. Not so much Venezuela, but in Saudi Arabia, like
UAE.
UAE. I mean, and the government pays everyone, and just like they do in Alaska. Citizens of a lot of these countries do get payments from the government based on oil revenues. Just like in Alaska, you get like a few $1,000s a year just for living there because of oil revenue. So. It's a fascinating question I have never ever thought about.
So what do you think? It's adapt or die, right? So do they adapt to something else? Is it impossible for them to adapt their economy to something else? And then does it just become, does it basically look like Spec Ops: The Line and like all these abandoned multi-million-dollar structures that are just there?
Yeah, so my personal opinion, you guys could say whatever you think to finish
We
it
generally
up.
do.
I think that it may lead to another war, and we'll have really bad extremist groups because they have nothing else to live for.
So the war is just because they have an axe to grind over the fact that we
even
destroyed
Russia,
everything.
most of Russia's economy is still oil.
Yeah.
You're talking about one of the biggest countries in terms of GDP and we're just even removing their biggest asset, and they've already kind of proven that they're unpredictable.
But the thing with it is, like, do you think it leads to a World War III if it's like you were talking about in your scenario of 1 month it's a switch flipped, or if it's decades, is that still the problem?
I think it would start out as extremist groups, and
Yeah.
as the extremist groups grow and take over other areas,
Yeah.
then it would grow into something bigger.
Gotcha.
And, I mean, overnight, not all the countries are going to go
Yeah.
to war against each other.
It would be interesting because you already see it. Well, it's not related to oil, obviously, but with ISIS like really spreading in Iraq and Syria, whatever, and basically becoming like an autonomous country.
Yep.
Those kinds of like just taking towns. I mean, like they're ours now. You know, it's very similar to what Russia did in Ukraine. I'm not comparing necessarily Russia to ISIS, but you know, in most regards, but they both are just taking territory. And so you're like, well, it's ours now. And
Well, let's be honest. The United States is not exactly known for not invading places as well.
Sure,
but
but
we've never actually taken something.
We haven't
in a
done.
while.
I mean, everyone did land grabs,
Yeah.
including us. Manifest Destiny was the justification of an entire westward expansion. So
Right.
we took the entire country. There's no doubt about that. But we haven't engineered.
We just can't pull that
we
shit off
haven't
now.
engineered
No.
something like to take land in over 100 years. Like the last time we really did it was probably Spanish-American War when we intentionally exploded the USS Maine to make it look like the Spanish attacked us, and then we had this whole war and we almost took Cuba. So it was
I
like
was just gonna say, I'm calling it right now. We should take Cuba.
we wanted to take Cuba. We had our eyes on Cuba for fucking 150 years.
Yeah.
Like
Still do.
and it happened until after World War II. I mean, we still wanted it, and we're still there. Guantanamo Bay is on Cuba.
Yeah.
So it's like we haven't. The point is that the world has gone away from that, you know, and we don't do land grabs anymore like everyone else has done, or in Africa or any of these places. So so those things have changed. And what's interesting about the political dynamic, especially in Europe, is that if Russia no longer has a gun barrel against Western Europe's head with their oil, then NATO will get involved. And then you're going to have a massive conflict, an almost Tom Clancy-like conflict in Eastern Europe. I think that's probably going to be the powder keg, because I agree, you're going to have extremist groups in the Middle East, probably, that topple governments and do whatever they do. But it's probably going to be more isolated. When you're dealing with a country like Russia, with an infrastructure and a huge military and technology and all these kinds of things, and then you're dealing with Western Europe that no longer is afraid of them anymore, then that's probably the powder keg. You have to assume that it's going to be in that area.
Do we feel like,
In my opinion.
But that's the question though. Is in this scenario, the United States has become self-sufficient. We don't need that oil anymore, and this is something that has sparked this big conflict. Do we get involved? Do we need to get involved?
Yeah, we will. If we do, an attack on one is attack against all. And
So
NATO.
because we're UN,
NATO.
yeah, NATO. So God, that would be the worst.
And
But at least we have military bases everywhere.
got that going for us.
got that going
NATO's
for us.
whole. I mean, and to be honest, the only time NATO has ever called into effect that, like, I think it's Article 5, which is the attack against all, which is the entire preface of NATO, was after 9/11 when people came to our aid. So certainly we would have to. So certain, because like we after 9/11 we were like, NATO's in effect, like, and there were some arguments about that. That's why all these countries that didn't want to go to Afghanistan went, because they're like, well,
We got to do it.
you know, so
We
the
got
point is that
France, Germany. There was a couple other. There's quite a few. UK obviously sent people with.
yeah,
it for
still
us.
there. And
Still there.
I think, I mean, some countries would have went because we're allies, but NATO is a thing where it's like that activates during a war. So if Russia, say, went into, I don't know, in the future of Georgia or whatever, you know, the country, then and Georgia was a NATO ally, then
Russia invades Atlanta. We got other issues.
We're like, shit, we're gonna be there in a day and a half.
it reminds me of the newsroom where they're making fun of that girl because she thought that Russia invaded Georgia, like the state. Then you'd have to go.
Yeah.
You know, so it's unless you just say like, no, we're, you know, this whole thing was bullshit and we're not getting involved at all, which is also possible, but that would be very bad because if something happened to us later,
Nobody's gonna come.
nobody's going to come to help us.
Oh, no, yeah, that's true. Plus, I'm sure we'd have a strategic reason to want to do that anyway. Our government's very good at figuring out reasons to start wars that benefit the bottom line, which is unfortunate. But
Calm down.
I'm not.
Get you and Lauren landing in a room in a tinfoil hat.
Lauren is a fantastic human being.
I love Lauren.
That
He knows
guy.
that.
That guy has some crazy theories, and I love it. Yeah, it's a good topic.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's a
a
great topic.
fascinating topic. Yeah, well done.
Hope it wasn't too boring.
Real
Not
lighthearted.
at all.
World War III.
No, if
we're
every
invading
game-
Atlanta.
If every GameOverGreggy show could be like this, I would love the show even more.
Giving you the signal that I need to take a break to go to
Oh,
the
what a
bathroom.
surprise! You didn't want another cup of water because you might have to go to the bathroom,
Greg,
but it
this
was
is
the sip
signal.
of coffee
Greg,
that did it.
This is gonna be the signal from here on out.
Go pee.
I'm gonna
Go pee.
meerkat, and we're back. Meerkatted.
Nick, it's your topic. Go. You crazy bastard.
Good lord.
My topic So this past weekend, I had a great weekend. I was invited up, of course, to my to Lake Tahoe to see my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law.
Of course, naturally.
Because it was the holiday weekend. Did
Memorial
you guys
Day.
all enjoy your Memorial Day?
Played a lot of
Absolutely.
Witcher.
I spent
Great.
the weekend for me was editing the Kind of Funny live show.
YouTube.com/.
Was that fun
So-
for you?
It was extremely fun. It was also very stressful rendering and all
Really?
that stuff. Rendering it, like it was just there was a
took
lot
forever?
of exporting problems because anyone that's edited videos will know the first export is never it. Your desktop by the end will have
it's
a
50.
million files that are
V4,
final,
V5,
final
final
V5,
V5, yeah.
final fucking. I really fucking hope this fucking works. V7 and whatever. So we got there, but as the time this post, the live show will definitely be posted.
YouTube.com/kind of funny.
Yeah. And the whole show will be there in its entirety. And I'm really trying to push this. I want this to be a video. I'll tell you guys about this later. But we need to socially push this harder than we've pushed anything ever.
Okay.
Even harder
I
than
want
the
the
Fast and
world
Furious
to know.
live stream. It's at currently 1.2 million on our
Yes,
channel.
because we didn't push that at all.
Does it pain you that Greg still holds the record for the highest grossing video on our channel?
No, Tim doesn't care.
No.
Tim doesn't give a shit.
One day I'll shatter that.
He's gonna shatter it. Challenge accepted.
It'll be good. I don't know.
Anyway, so I love going up to Tahoe. I love seeing my family, and it's great that they're very, very close. And specifically, I like it because we do a nice mix of like outdoor activity. We'll walk around, we'll hike sometimes. Sometimes we'll go, just out and about Tahoe because it's so beautiful. And then for the rest of the time, we just eat really bad food and watch movies.
Great.
Which is my absolute favorite thing to do because I get along very, very well with my brother and sister-in-law.
Not your wife so much.
No, my wife is amazing, but been there, done that. So I don't even think about her that much anymore. However, there was one thing that I noticed this past time. So we watched a lot of movies, and we watched a lot of bad movies, so it didn't bother me too much because it's more about the company and who you're with.
And
what
you
you're
love
doing.
bad movies, let's be
And
real.
I fucking love bad movies. So I'm gonna list off what we watched.
Okay.
Black and White.
Don't even know what that is.
It's a Kevin Costner movie.
Pokemon game.
Damn right.
We watched Draft Day, another Kevin Costner movie. A Dolphin Tale 2, because they made a second one of those.
What the fuck? What is that?
Dolphin Tale 1 was about the dolphin that didn't have a tail that they made a prosthetic flipper for. And then it was
like
a
the
big
plug
Like
on
a
the title.
flipper, like side story?
No, it literally is. This is a true story. You can go down to Florida and see Winter, the dolphin that doesn't have a tail. The way they rescued this dolphin, and it was like super depressed, and it had scoliosis of the spine because it just didn't have a tail. And they figured out that if they went to like a lead prostheticist person that makes prosthetics.
Prosthesis?
Colin, you're supposed to correct me when I get the wrong word.
Prostheticist, maybe?
Prostheticist?
I don't know.
A doctor.
Somebody who makes now I can't even say
yeah,
the
no
right
one can
word.
say it.
engineer.
Say Northeastern five times fast.
Can't.
Anyway, they go to him and they're like, "Hey, is there any way possible that you can make a fin
Fucking Robotail.
for like a tail for this dolphin?" Because it's dying. Basically, if a dolphin can't swim, obviously it's going to get super depressed. Because dolphins have feelings like they're smart. They have emotions like human beings.
Yeah,
Like,
so
it's fucking
let's give him
depressed.
fucking robot parts.
So we
Damn
we
right.
made
We're
it
fucked.
basically
We're so
RoboCop.
fucked.
But it was actually fascinating. The first one was fascinating because they had to figure out what kind of material they could use that the dolphin wouldn't freak out because they're not used to having
Robotails.
robotails at all. And anyway, long story short is it accepted the tail and eventually became a huge national sensation.
Was
and
the
you can
sequel
still go see it.
about him?
The
Or his
sequel
friend?
was about him as well because they have to pair dolphins
Mm-hmm.
in order for them to I guess not the FDA.
The FDA's out
It's
there
definitely the
pairing.
FDA.
No, it's
and
not the
pairing
FDA.
dolphins.
What's the other group that covers wildlife?
PETA?
No,
It's a government thing?
Fish and Wildlife?
I thought it was the Food and Drug Administration, but it's not.
probably not.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, the government comes in and says, "Look, you can't keep a man like an animal of this like stature by itself. You have to have a pair because otherwise they get super depressed and they die."
And because it's a sequel, so.
And because it's a sequel, so it was about finding the pair
Yeah.
for Winter because her pair
Yeah.
dies. Like
Yeah, I mean,
her
it's
partner
rare that
dies.
the whole cast of the first movie comes back for the sequel. So that's
They got
cool.
everyone back, and I'm
Yeah.
talking everyone. Here's the deal: they got Harry Connick Jr., Ashley Judd, Morgan Freeman came back for this. Chris Christopherson came back.
This isn't real, right?
It's 100% real. I watched it.
Dolphin's Tale 2 has these people in it.
They all came back for it. They got Morgan Freeman's like this. He's just
the
smiling the entire
waters
time.
are
I got
receded.
paid $10 million for this. Put the tail on the dolphin. Anyway, had a lovely weekend watching all those bad movies. We watched one other one, and I can't remember. It was Focus with Will Smith and Margot Robbie. And I'm
Oh.
glad they held that movie because she was not very good in it. She's better now. But apparently they filmed that movie a while back, and then she got big because of Wolf of Wall Street, so they held it and then released it after. This happens a lot in Hollywood where they're like, this movie's not that good, but she's got a Martin Scorsese movie coming out, so let's hold it. And then If
Release
you
it on
notice,
that
Focus
namesake.
came out like 6 months later. That was very strategic. But what made the movies slightly worse, and this is the topic, a long-winded sort of trail to get to my topic, was that my sister-in-law, God bless her, and she knows I love her, likes to watch everything with TrueMotion on.
Good Lord.
And if you're not familiar, you probably have this on your TV. It's probably called something else, either Smooth Motion or True Motion or whatever. Basically, what this process does, and I'm probably going to slaughter this, but to the best of my knowledge, is it artificially creates new frames in the picture to make it look more like video or more like real life. Yeah. Now, to the untrained eye, it makes everything look more crisp, more vibrant. It makes the motion a little bit more like a 60 frames per second video or a video game. And so you're getting that really hyper realistic sort of look. People are starting to like this.
No, take it off TVs.
It's so offensive.
To the point where my wife actually went to visit her friend in Atlanta, who we might end up actually seeing. And
going to her
she cannot, yeah, we're going to spend the night there. She cannot watch anything without this on.
Ugh.
And my wife's like, calls me. She's like, Mel's in the bathroom right now. How do I turn this thing off? She won't notice. And I had to walk her through turning off, and sure as shit, Mel noticed.
Yeah.
She was like, what happened to my TV? What, did you do something?
No, because a lot of people I know that I don't respect at all, they they think that that's what HD means. Like, they think that's HD. Like, no, you don't have an HD. This isn't an HD TV. It's like, I want to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, there's not many things that will make me want to murder someone, but this apparently is one of them.
Yeah.
So, for people out there that aren't as crazy about video as we are, which I'm sure there are not many of our fans probably are. I think a lot of our fans probably are. But for the few people out there that don't give a shit about frame rate and specifically like how that's accurately portrayed from what the people who either made the movie or designed the game wanted it to be, it's hard for me to watch something that was what they say acquired in 24 frames per second, and then that is artificially kind of inflated to 30 or 60 frames per second. It just, to me, destroys the visual fabric of the storytelling. It looks terrible. It does weird stuff to the lighting in the film, and it really, there's such a thin line for what they call the magic or the art of making movies or TV, right? And that relies on a number of different things, but one of the biggest is that it's 24 frames per second. And all of us that have grown up with that technology see that as a film, and we're sort of lulled into that like suspense of disbelief, and it's that passive experience. But man, when I watch something that's got that like hyper realness to it, I can't relax. I'm constantly watching it. My brain's constantly like, this is wrong.
It makes everything look like CG.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
It makes everything look like the Transformers movies, where it's just like the fake things are just moving around, even if it's a human, and it's really, really distracting.
My wife even mentioned that. She was like, what's the word I'm looking for? And I'm like, everything looks composited.
Yeah.
Like it looks like everyone was on a green screen and the background is just not real.
Yeah.
This is a problem people had with The Hobbit, right?
No.
It's a similar problem.
Didn't they film it though
They filmed it
60
at
frames
48.
per second.
At
48, yeah.
Okay.
So it looked fucking whacked out.
But that's different though, because so that
that's
was
native at least.
What was the word you just said?
That was natively acquired at.
Acquired,
that
yeah.
was shot at 48 frames per second.
But
with
I mean-
two reds, and that was actually done specifically for the 3D and the compositing in it, though.
I thought that was done for the battle scenes because in theory, if there's more frames, you'll be able to see the fights
crisper,
better.
yes.
Because if somebody's swinging an axe in a normal movie, it happens really quick and it's hard to follow action movies.
You get-
like
so-
Avengers or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it has to do with a lot of motion blur and how that's being.
But the big thing is like I could be wrong and you probably know this better, but the eye only sees at 28 frames per second. So if you're doing animation, it's only 28 frames in a second.
I don't know, actually. I meant to look that up before the show.
Well, that can't be true, because you can see the difference between 24 and 60.
That depends. Even in video games, like there are some games where you can notice, and the only big time you really notice in a lot of video games is if you're using a mouse.
But
Because you're looking very quickly.
For movies, like if you look at it, if you watch The Hobbit in 48.
Oh no, it will look different, but your mind doesn't necessarily process it the way that it's supposed to.
Well, I think what you're thinking is, and I could be wrong on this, but in order to perceive motion in images, it has to be at least 16 frames per second.
That could be it.
So if you drop below 16 frames per second,
It looks like stop motion.
It looks like
instead of
stop motion,
something
or your brain goes, that is a series of still pictures that are being put together.
Yeah.
At 16 frames is when the human brain goes, I'm watching motion.
This is something moving. Yeah.
And apparently, and I looked this up, so I could be wrong, but this was from old school film school. Is that the reason we hit 24 is because during sound constraints in order to sync sound with video, with film, it had to be at least 24 frames.
That's what I was going to ask you, how
that
they settled on that.
Yeah, so that was how they settled on 24 frames. And of course, back in the day and to this day, film stock is incredibly important. So you didn't really want to push it that extra 6 frames per second, because you're talking about miles of film at the end of the day that cost a ton of money per foot. So they were like, 24 is the bare minimum we could do. That's what the entire industry settled on, and it's not right or wrong, by the way. It's just we all as a group. That is what we came up knowing. That is how we perceive narrative, the high art of storytelling in film, to be. So it's not to say that 20 years from now or 60 years from now, because everything's digital now, it's just literally a setting on our camera that we switch over that says go from 24 to 60, that we might not enjoy everything at 60 frames per second later down the road. But for right now, I equate 60 frames per second as video, which means soap opera. And so when I'm watching Will Smith have sex with Margot Robbie in a soap opera, I'm like, this is not sexy. This is just weird, and I don't get.
Well, it's also very soap opera or home movie, and I think that's the thing that's like weird about it is that it looks like it looks like your home videos from the '90s that like it's real life, like that's shit that really happened. So it's kind of off-putting to see Will Smith naked in real life.
How was the sex scene though?
Not hot, but just because they didn't have a lot of chemistry. And Margot Robbie, it was her first film. I don't think she wasn't. It wasn't a great film. It kind of derailed about halfway through. Where you're like, what is this about? Starts off really, really well.
There's no focus, you would say.
I was like, damn it.
It does suffer sadly from a lack of focus.
So what is the question then? What is
the question? Is are there any other things in tech right now that get you like that? Like to me, that is one of those things where I'm like, if I see this, my brain instantly goes, please convince this person to change this. Like you have to use all of your knowledge from the 4 years of that weird film school you went to, and all of your knowledge of the 10 years since shooting video to tell this person why this is so wrong. Yeah. Is there anything else like that in your lives? Is there anything that bugs you from a tech perspective like that?
When notifications are still on a PlayStation 4, turn that shit off. You don't
notifications in general. I think that's a good one. Just like when you don't want them, there's such a...
Don't get the Apple Watch then.
Yeah. No, you need to finely tune it to your exact taste, app per app, system by system, like all these different things. And it's like, holy crap, the day someone understands how to make one app that controls all your notifications for your life, how you want them to, oh man, it's going to be good. But until then,
there you go, smart guy, make that app, okay?
James is like, hold on a second.
Kind of funny notifications coming out later this year.
Yeah, we talked about it before, but the whole 30 versus 60 frames a second and 1080 versus 720 arguments in gaming really annoy the shit out of me because people use these as benchmarks of game quality, and that's really not true. I agree that a shooter is sharper and better to play probably at 60 frames a second, but not every game needs to run at 60 frames a second. Not every game needs to run even anywhere near 60 frames a second to be good. So I hate that, and not every game needs to be in 1080.
Yeah.
A game that runs in 720 is not a poor game. It's a matter of the visual fidelity of the game matters to a lot of people, not so much to me. But it's more about how does the game play. 60 frames as an element of gameplay matters in a Twitch shooter, but it doesn't necessarily matter in a game like The Witcher that runs at 30 frames.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And The Witcher running at 60 frames is not going to make it a better game. So that whole argument about 30 versus 60 frames a second and 720 versus 1080 in resolution, whatever, actually is starting to annoy the shit out of me because it's like, let's look at the game. The game runs at this and this. Is it good? If you ran at a higher frame rate or a better resolution, would it make it better? Not necessarily. Okay, then let's stop arguing about it. You know? In other words, there are certain games where it really benefits, and then there are certain games where, most games, I would say, where it doesn't matter.
I think constant frame rate is the most important thing.
Yeah,
like
locking frame rate.
30. Yeah, locked. That's when's really necessary. But I'm a numbers whore. I want 1080, 60 for everything.
Yeah, but it's not. It's like I think some games actually look weird. I think some games look weird at 60 frames, and it's not to say that it's better or worse. And I'm not saying that all games look weird at 60. Of course, you want to play Call of Duty at 60 frames a second. It's a fucking shooter. Yeah, you know, but The Witcher at 60 frames, I don't really know if that would even be necessary, and how much that would take from the PlayStation 4's power to run that game means that resolutions must be less or whatever. You have to make sacrifices. So I just feel like this. I just feel like this argument. It annoys me because I know some people can see it and it bothers some people, but all I can see is I can tell if a game's running at a great frame rate or 60, and I can tell if a game's running at an okay or a good frame rate, and I can tell if the game's not running right.
Right.
But I'm not the guy like I've known like savants that we used to work with
Craig Harris.
that are like 22 frames a second. And I'm like, how the fuck could you possibly know that? You know what I mean? And then you put on the thing and you're like, you're right, it's 22 frames a second.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's take the opposite of that, though, right? I watched you guys play The Order, right? Which is a game that purposely tries to be more cinematic. Did that add to the experience to have it be a more cinematic frame rate?
You'd say the same about The Last of Us, too. The PS4 version.
Yeah, the PS4 version ran at 60. You could lock it at 30, though. Yeah, I mean, I thought The Order played fine and looked pretty. So it wasn't.
No, and I'm not judging the game quality. I'm saying is that
you can judge it because it's not a very good game.
A lot of people would like they try to present that game like an anamorphic aspect ratio. They wanted it to play more like a cinematic experience. Is that something that you guys think would be? I mean, is that beneficial to the game to do that, or is it just kind of like, dude, now we want 30 frames per second at least?
Yeah, I think
is that minimum 30 frames per second?
Yeah, I think if your game's running, and that's the thing to the point I'm making. Like sub 30 is not optimal for any game.
Right? Yeah,
because and it's not so much the way the game looks, because as we said, natural motion for us on a screen is usually 24 frames. So any game we play is running faster, but it's a game with input. So like that matters, and that's why Twitch shooters have to be preferably be played at 60, because every frame matters. It's not so much that games running at 30 are better than 60 or vice versa. It's just the argument surrounding it that never fucking ends.
Dies.
And I feel like people just like are need to take games on a game by game basis and stop being again, we were talking about it before just about politics off camera, but so obsessed with the orthodoxy of 1080 60 that they're not like, wait a minute, Game X doesn't need to run it. Like the Game X looks fine at 720.
Right.
And like it's not, the gameplay's not benefiting from the 60 frames a second. It runs at 45 and it's locked. Like who cares? You know what I mean? Like, or running at 30 more likely and locked. And it's like, I don't know. So to me, it's not so much that those options matter, but so much about the focus on those things as opposed to, is the game good or is the game bad? Right. Is the gameplay fun? Is the gameplay bad? If the gameplay is bad, could it benefit from an enhanced frame rate? If not, let's drop the subject for this particular game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Naughty Dog's even come out and said for Uncharted 4, like, their goal isn't 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll try to do that, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and it's
we just
very
want to make
true.
the game look and run the best it possibly can.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful game. Like, it's not adding anything to it.
Well, see, I would also add that for that game, it might not behoove it to run at 60 frames per second, because that game does heavily revolve around a cinematic quality.
Yes,
right?
it's probably more that they can't fit it into the game.
Was the order at 24? Was that what you're saying?
I don't
Or
know
were
that
you
it
just
was
saying
24. It was
No.
going for. I don't think it was at 24. It was probably
that'd
at
be
least
weird.
the 30.
Yeah,
I don't think
it was
anyone
30.
would
It'd be
purposely do a
interesting
game at
to
24.
see a game at 24. Like I wonder
30
if
or
it would
60.
have that.
Well,
the
you have to.
feeling.
That's just the other thing, though, too, because there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into film acquisition that doesn't go into games, specifically depth of field and motion blur. And so
Well, I
lot
feel like
of
they add that now.
you
though.
get
Yeah,
you
they
get
do.
that, but it's not a staple. It doesn't behoove you to have depth of field in a game like a third-person shooter, for instance, because you need to be able to see all the way down to your distance to figure out what's going
Yeah.
on. If they had depth of field, it would be a physical impossibility to play a third-person shooter, because you would have to choose
What
where
you're seeing,
They do
yeah.
it a lot. They do it. You're specifically referring to like when they in Call of Duty, when you do this and you've got like, there's like a depth of field around you, so you can't see what's here because you're focused, 20 feet or 30 feet down the barrel. That's accurate. But with film, you have, the DP is choosing what you're seeing via the use of depth of field, and they're also inherently, depending on the aperture and your settings of the camera, or how you chosen to shoot that, you can get a specific amount of motion blur in there, which actually, again, has that psychological effect of like it's more cinematic. It's lulling the person that's watching it into more of a passive experience.
Yeah.
You don't get motion blur, especially in first-person shooters, because you don't want that. Like, you want everything to be as crisp as possible because you want it to be 60 frames because you want it to resolve so quickly and so precisely that you can see things way far away, right?
Yeah, it's also in games the unintended consequences of trying to run your game as meaty as possible. It creates all sorts of problems in the game. Like, it doesn't have to, and there are games that run at 60, 1080 that run beautifully, but it can lower resolutions. It can cause screen tearing and like all sorts of like problems that just occur because the game's using too much processing power by having to run at this high resolution that maybe it didn't need necessarily run at. Of course, this is also coming from the opposite angle that some people do, which is just that these consoles are not strong enough, and maybe that's an argument too, especially with PCs, which are like way stronger than the PS4.
I was gonna put that on there as one of my other things. PC gaming in general. Period. I hate that technology fucking shit.
Yeah,
Is that
it's
because
pretty bad?
that's because you're
Because it never works. I tried to play a game this weekend. I plug in a controller. No. Oh, you're trying to use an Xbox. It's set for Xbox 360, not Xbox One. I plug in the Xbox 360. Doesn't work. Restart everything. Restart it. No, it doesn't work.
It's just
Going
a
to
whole knowledge.
Keybindings,
It's a knowledge
it doesn't
base
work.
that you just need to know. And once you know it, you're like, how can you not know this? It's so simple. But
Right.
it's like, oh yeah, you just need to go to the side, download the driver, update the driver, make sure that it fits with the BIOS.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what half those words mean.
Yeah.
But it's like once you do, you're like, how do you not know it? But it's like the topic we had a couple weeks ago about teaching someone games that doesn't know games.
Sure.
It's like, oh yeah, just pick up the controller, hit the X button, then go to the menu and whatever. It's like that means nothing to them.
Oh, the
Even though it's
cameras
so
are the
simple.
hardest for
Yeah,
new people.
all that stuff.
They
So
can't
it's like-
figure out the
PC gaming, man, even to gamers, is like console gamers.
Well,
is
see, and this
difficult.
is the thing that scares me, right? Is because what you guys are describing is sort of a standard, right? There needs to be a sort of commonly upheld standard for anything to thrive, right? We have to all agree, like, hey, this is kind of the experience we want, and we'll rally around this and we'll support it financially. So this is what terrifies me about the smooth motion shit, is that it's installed on every TV and it's on. When you turn your TV on, you're like, oh, my TV looks awesome, right? And don't get me wrong, if you're watching like a Real Housewives show or a Kardashian show and it's shot in 30 frames per second, and you want to go for it, right? Who cares? But when it comes to film, if you're watching Interstellar, it's 60 frames per second. Christopher Nolan would probably come to your house and strangle you. He would probably just strangle the life out of you and then go on to the next household. That's what I imagine him doing right now.
Yeah.
Damn.
In between
That's why he
films,
doesn't make no movies.
It's
really busy.
to each his own.
It's
I'm
a
like,
long list.
I give people a lot of shit. If that's it's your TV, that's how you want to watch. That's how you want to watch. But just know that that is not how the artist intended this thing to come to you.
Yeah, no, I mean it's insulting. I said earlier that it's really bad. Like you said that it makes everything all vibrant and shit. And it really does. It ruins the image. It looks like a thumbnail that I made, where it's like I don't know how I'm photoshopping. I'm just putting this together and turning the vibrancy up and hoping it catches people's eye. But that's how every image looks.
But you can do that without having the frame. I don't care if you like to watch, like I specifically like to watch everything that's a film with very muted settings, the way that most film is. I like to try to get my TV to mirror the color that they've actually colored, how they've actually done the brightness and contrast pass on their film as much as possible. So if you watch something on my TV and you're used to that vibrant color, you're probably gonna be like, wait, what the hell? Why is it so desaturated? I try to get it as true to form, in other words, as humanly possible. But if you like vibrancy, dial up the vibrancy. Go to that game setting or the.
I mean, if people's faces aren't orange, you're not doing it right.
That's fine. You can do that. You can get a crisp image out of your TV and a very saturated image out of your TV without doing the frame blending. It's really the frame blending is the only thing that really kills me. Like everything else, if you want everything you watch to look like a Michael Bay film, great, do that. If it all has to look like Bad Boys 2, fuck it, make it look like Bad Boys 2. But for the love of God, don't destroy that thin fabric between cinematic and reality. Just don't do that.
Yeah, I think, and
No, it's in my house.
One of the points you made too is just like, what is the vision of the filmmaker? What is the vision of the game creator? And that's always the thing that bothered me with games and this whole 1080p, 780 or 720, 30, 60 thing is like, what is the intent of doing that? You know, with a finite amount of resources, was the game going to be prettier if they did this at this frame rate? And does this make sense? In other words, there's just no answer. Yeah, if you like 60, 1080, more power to you, because I think games are probably generally prettier that way and look better that way. But it doesn't always have to be that way. So what is the reason behind it? It's not because developers are lazy. It's because this is the way the game was going to run. Right. You know, Witcher 3 would not run at 60 frames a second. You know,
That's too much information.
Like it's just not, and like it doesn't have to.
So isn't the argument more though less about them like, oh, everything should be 1080 60 and more if the systems aren't equal? Like I feel like most of the time the argument comes up is it's like, well, fuck you, this is the better version because it's on.
Well, PS4 runs games better than Xbox One generally, and it was the exact opposite last time. But that's an argument too. But you see a lot of people saying like, oh, 30 frames, like fuck 30 frames a second, or it's running in 720, like without even knowing anything about the game. You know, and it's like okay, like who cares? Like that's the thing that bothers me, where it's like you're just gonna, that's just it.
That's arbitrary choice is what turns you on.
Like the game's at 30, that's it. I guess a lot of people, it's like, so you didn't like The Last of Us? Yeah. You know? Or like,
they're like, no, we didn't.
And so like, that's more what I'm saying. You're right that it's more like it's deeper than that. But I see a whole lot of stuff on the internet where I'm like, but the game's running at 30 or the game's, and I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
You know, is it like, let's see if it affects the gameplay.
Let me ask you this all important question. What did Mega Man 2 run at?
I have no idea.
I mean,
something that's like unfathomable.
It wasn't constant.
It was 60 frames. It was 60 frames, except for it's presumably 60 frames, except for the slowdown.
Right.
When too many enemies are on screen.
Yeah, when there's too many
And
enemies.
by too many means like 3.
It's not even enemies. I mean, what's so fascinating about Mega Man 2 is that, or just Mega Man games generally, is that, and I've talked about this I think on other shows, is that Mega Man had huge bosses that a lot of games couldn't figure out how to do. And what Capcom was doing was making the bosses the background. And so, and that's why there would be like certain, so like Gamma in Mega Man 3 is the last boss, but he's just the background. And then there's like certain things that are like laid over him so the game actually runs. And so you'll notice that you can like run through certain parts of him, and like certain parts of him don't get affected by any shots or anything like that. It's because like the big dragon in Mega Man 2 that chases you is the background.
Oh, fascinating.
You know, and so like they'd figure out like these kind of really clever solutions to get around these problems of slowdown, but there was still plenty of slowdown. And the problem is that you created your own slowdown almost always.
Because you would blow stuff up, yeah.
Shoot stuff.
Fascinating.
Good topic.
Good topic.
My final piece that pisses me off when I go to somebody else's house and they have technology is when they leave the stickers on it, the protective stickers.
Ooh,
like when they have
yeah.
a DualShock and they still have them. Like,
Yeah,
you
see, my
peel us
thing
off.
is-
You just pull it off. Tom.
There's certain stickers that I hate being taken off, but there's some that I'm like, I'm okay keeping them on for a while. What I hate is when people take off your stickers. So fuck you, Kevin Coelho. Leave my goddamn
You take stickers
on
off
my
for people?
shit.
That's bad. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Off him.
It's
For
just
what?
the
Like on
worst.
what?
He just
like your
does it to
phone?
piss
I don't know
On
anything.
Laptop.
Like fucking
Why'd you leave it
anything.
on your laptop?
his
I don't know.
phone.
My biggest problem is
Why
when he
is it on your
takes it
phone?
off, but he doesn't take it off cleanly, and there's all the fucking sticky white shit.
It's really
Have that
satisfying
issue.
taking it off, though.
It is.
Yeah.
You stole it from him.
But,
What is the most satisfying sticker to take off? I'm gonna throw it out
That's
there.
a topic for another day.
Is it?
Yeah.
All
that's
right.
Totally
You can make a
topic.
full
You
topic
saved
out of
it,
that
yeah.
question.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could definitely.
You know us. We
Topics
I
have
know
way
what it
stupider
is.
things than that.
Yeah. Nick, that topic wasn't stupid. In fact, it was so good it was sponsored by Squarespace. Start your free trial site today with no credit card required at squarespace.com. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code KINDAFUNNY to get 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace, build it beautiful. Now, Nick, you've used the Squarespace.
I have indeed.
You've
We
built our site with it.
Kindafunny.com on Squarespace right now. You can go check it out right now.
They like to say it's easy and good. Is this true?
It is. I've talked about this before. It is. It's one of those things where when we decided to leave our old jobs and form this brand new company, of course we did not leave ourselves enough time to do everything we had done on our to-do list. So I was down to about 2 days to get the site up and running. Now, barring me figuring out what was going on the hosting side, Squarespace was very, very easy to just kind of get a nice, good look, clean look up, and ready to rock and roll.
All right. So squarespace.com.
If you
Offer
want
code KINDAFUNNY.
if you're wanting to do anything simple, portfolio work, any of that stuff, definitely check out Squarespace.
They say they give you 24/7 online support. Beautiful website for only $8 a month. You can get a free domain if you buy Squarespace for a year. So what are you waiting for? Start a free trial with no credit card required and start building. What are you waiting for? What am I waiting for? Squarespace. There you go. Thanks for sponsoring this episode. Everybody go there. Use the code. Kinda funny. Colin,
Yes.
your topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
for
well,
you.
So you guys know I'm a science nerd, but
really good.
like we talked about earlier, I'm not a science nerd in the sense that I'm like going to write proofs on the chalkboard. I just like reading about science and learning about science, and I'm just really into it. I'm really into physics and astronomy especially, and all these kinds of things.
I just got this image of Colin like with his back toward the camera. He's just like, no.
And it just says 2 plus 2
It's
because
like
it's
4.
about as much math as I can do. That was always held me back. I've talked before that I had always an interest in even like minoring in chemistry or something like that. And I was just like, I can't get very far in this. So I'm just wasting my time. But I saw Interstellar, which is a Christopher Nolan film. And it came out about, I don't know, a year and a half ago, but I finally had just rented it on Amazon and watched it this weekend. So there's going to be some Interstellar spoilers here. I think more about the science than the plot. So if you don't really care about the science and the things like in it, then maybe you don't care, but you might want to, just know that we're going to talk a little bit about Interstellar here. And what I was fascinated by, we're going to have a little winding road to my topic like you did, Nick, is
Naturally.
I love this science in Interstellar and whether it was real or whether it was false, and there were some things in there that clearly didn't make any sense.
Right.
So I was, but there were some things that made perfect sense. The one thing that bothered me in the movie is that when they're landing on one of the ice.
I was going to say, can I guess which one bothered
Okay.
you? The fact that she would actually make out with the dude from that 70s show.
Yeah, no, that's
That bothered me.
That's against all rules of physics.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Jessica
Einstein didn't
Chastain,
account for this.
So hot.
No, I was
that
going
out
to say
there.
when they're landing on the ice planet and they run into a cloud in the sky.
Yeah.
I'm like, that cloud would have been torn down to the ground by gravity. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But other than that, like that doesn't make any sense at all. Other than that, if it's heavy enough to be a solid, then it's heavy enough to not be in the fucking air anymore.
Right.
So I downloaded a book by Kip Thorne, who is he's a physicist and he's a scientific advisor on Interstellar, and he talks about meeting the actors, and then he gets into the science, and he goes into Gargantua and the wormhole and all these kinds of things. Gargantua being the black hole, and how all these things could happen, and how all these things are somewhat realistic. So my topic is things that you know are real or think are real, that you've learned about in science, or whatever, that you can't believe are real, but like they're still like mind bending. And
You believe they're real. It's just impossible. You're just, God, that's crazy.
like and
How can that
or
be?
and more in this my example, it is real, but it's so mind bending that it's astonishing. And like, what are some of the things that you guys know to be true that are still hard for you to accept or believe?
Okay.
And one of the things that I was thinking about was when they land on the water planet, which is awesome.
Yeah,
an awesome
the
scene.
planet
The-
was
the-
just giant waves going by,
Yeah.
destroying everything.
The
every
planet
10
was
minutes.
Heavy gravity.
Yeah, the planet is covered in just a very thin layer of water, like they can stand in it, and there's a perpetual tidal wave going around the planet because as the planet revolves or it's rotating, but then it's revolving around Gargantua. Gargantua is consistently pulling on it, just like
Pulling it,
our
yeah.
moon does with our with our tides. But the wave happens to be like 2 miles high, and it just never stops. And but the bigger thing that was crazy to me is that it's so close to the black hole that it dilates time. So they're on the planet's surface for an hour and they get back to the space station and the guy there is 26 years older and has been waiting for them for 26 years when they were only on the planet's surface for an hour.
Which, by the way, was one of those weird scenes where he's like, they just come in and they're like, hey, guy. And he's like, it's been 26 years since you left. I almost killed myself. Almost. And they just like, all right, cool.
Hey, we just water and stuff.
Well, because he could have went into like cryo sleep or whatever, but he chose not to.
Yeah.
And then he did all that science that ended up not being important anyway because they were lied to. So he just wasted all of this time. But that was one of the things where I was like, holy, like, because I've read a lot about time travel and time dilation and stuff, and it's really interesting. Obviously, the quicker you go, the more time slows down. And they were talking about experiments. Kip Thorne talks about in his book experiments that were done at Harvard, where they would shoot lasers from like the top of a building to the bottom of a building and see how and then examine them with atomic clocks, and found out that even being like on the top of a 10-story building means time is going slower by like milliseconds.
Being on top of a 10-story building, why is that?
Because
Less
you're
gravity.
further away from the source of the gravity.
I see,
Yeah.
okay.
So, being in an airplane, if you were like always in an airplane, for instance, you're aging slower.
Yep.
Because you're constantly a mile high.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's just so Kip Thorne goes into a lot of these things, but it was that specific thing that happened with the time dilation where I was like, holy shit. You're with them like almost in real time on the planet, and in real time, 26 years had passed for that other person. And I was like, fuck. Like that's totally real. That's real science. And Einstein talked all about this, in the 1920s.
Let's take a step back because that was going to be my answer, which is like I don't understand that concept of like time
Theory of
being
relativity.
relative, right? Why does that work that way? And specifically, they talk about that when you're talking about faster than light travel as well, right?
Yeah.
The closer you get to light, the time differential between the ship traveling and people back on Earth is going to be completely ridiculous, right? They said like I think. I forget what it was. I'm not even going to try to guess the stats, but 70 years could easily be like what 1 year or something. If you're what is it? Let's not get into that.
And well, no, it depends. Like if you can't travel faster than light, so if you're traveling
close to the speed of light,
if you're traveling
though.
almost to the speed of light, time is almost not passing.
Right. So literally, if you were traveling at the speed of light, time would stand
Time
still.
stands still, technically, I think, right?
So 1 year on Earth would be 1 second for you, basically.
Yeah, and that's what they were always saying. That's why cryosleep was such an interesting solution and something to go into Interstellar is the entire idea that if we were going to do interstellar travel, even not through a wormhole, but just leave the solar system and then go to another star, like Vega or something, one of these close by stars, we'd have to be gone. We'd be gone for tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
But millions of years might pass on Earth by the time we get back
Yeah.
because of the speeds in which we're traveling. So that was the thing where I was like, it's
But
like I've
why-
always known that to be true, and I'm like, what the fuck?
So let's take a step back. Explain that to me too, because I understand the concept of like if you were to tell me Kevin is, what are you, 5'6", 5'7"? 5'6". Kevin's 5'6". I'm like, okay, cool, I can memorize that fact. I don't know what caused him to be 5'6" though. What causes that? How does that? I mean, perhaps I'm asking you guys to explain the theory of relativity.
Yeah.
Which might be a longer discussion than we need because I'm sure they teach entire classes about the subject. But what is the science behind relativity?
Well, I'm probably gonna butcher this entirely.
You're gonna get it better than me though. If you try.
So basically, large gravitational objects that create large gravitational pulls screws up the space-time fabric.
Okay.
And what it does is like because of the large gravitational pull, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. How do they describe it in the movie? They fold over a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And explain that if this happens, then.
Well, here's the best example I can think of, and this is how it was explained to me when I was a kid.
Right.
You take and Kip Thorne actually explained this in a similar way. You take a piece of rubber, right, and you expand it into a room, and then you place a ball in the middle of it, right? The ball is going to sag the rubber in the middle, and so the fabric of space-time is a straight line, right? And when when time is traveling and then goes into one of these wells, these gravity wells that like Earth or the sun or whatever creates, time dips. And so when you go into a black hole, which like you can't even see through and nothing can escape, including information, light, or time.
Right.
You can't even see into them because nothing escapes. Once
So
you
it
cross the
basically
event horizon,
stops everything.
Exactly. Once you get to once you cross the event horizon, it's it. That's why you can't see into a black hole. Because there are things there possibly, but you can't nothing escapes. Nothing.
Right. Not even
So
Greg's
and
ego.
it's because
Even
the
Greg's
black
ego
hole
couldn't get out of the black hole.
Well, it's yes, thank you, Nick. But it's because the rubber like is being bent just a little bit by the planet, but by
Right.
the black hole, it's like a hole. Like everything just goes into it and it's gone.
So, but
You know?
that's the
that's
thing,
that's
because-
a decent way to explain how gravity affects time, right?
But time
Yeah.
is not a physical thing, like a particle of light.
No, but it's a dimension.
Yes.
Good Lord, I am so lost right now.
But you see what I'm saying? 'Cause
Holy
you're
shit.
trying-
Did you see
that's-
this movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where it's hard for
It was
me
a
to-
plot point to me. It's
I
like, oh,
didn't
he's
see the
old,
movie, I
he's
don't know.
old because of time.
But that's like everything to the movie. Like that's like the most important scientific theory in that entire movie.
yeah.
Yeah, because they explained that they could have gone to more. They had like 12 planets they could have gone to, but it was literally time and the relation of those planets to the black hole that meant that they couldn't go to all of them because they understood. Like they explained that they even are traveling away from the black hole as far as possible to minimize time dilation.
Right.
Because they could have made it easier and done it faster, but they knew that once they were on the surface of the planet, time was passing 7 times quicker or something like that. So.
That's crazy to me, but that's where I have.
So again,
this is where my brain breaks down. Right, is that you say like why did he physically age more than the people that were on the planet below him? Like, what is there a
Larger
slowdown in their cell decomposition?
Oh no.
Well, no, he's
that's-
living the 26 years, and the time isn't moving as quickly for
again,
them down there.
so-
That's where my brain does like.
It's because
Theory-
the black hole is warping time.
Yeah. Theory is relative to the planet that you're on. So what do we define a day as?
Well, I get
24
that part,
hours.
but like it's just so fucking nuts for me that
That's
like,
exactly the point I'm making.
That's so like, it doesn't like I get why it should work. I get that it works. I just don't understand physically how like I can be over here and you can be over here and your cells will have aged 26 years and mine will have aged 1 hour. Does that make sense? Like I understand the physics behind it, I understand the science behind it. There's still that connect where I'm like, and maybe perhaps science really hasn't figured out exactly what causes it either. It's just that like I get like right here and then it just kind of goes over this.
Well, that's
way
the
a
point I'm
little bit,
making is
like-
that I'm sure there are people that know science way better than I am that are like cringing because of the way I explained it. But that's basically how like I understand it or whatever.
Right.
And it's not so much that like that's what I'm saying. I don't understand the mathematical proof. I understand that it's true.
Right.
Because there are people way smarter than me that tell me it's true.
But
I'm with you. I'm like, how the fuck is that possible?
How is that possible?
Well, it's
Yeah.
weird because when you just explained it, your answer was gravity. Why is time different? Because gravity. And I just go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
good
the
enough.
answer. That's
good
what
enough
I'm looking
answer
for.
for me.
Because
What the fuck does that mean?
gravitational pull. That's the only way that I
It's
think
like,
about it.
I'm just going to answer any
question.
question for the rest of my life with, because the gravitational pull.
Because the argument in Interstellar, I think, is that one of the questions that people ask about the Big Bang is like, where did the Big Bang go? We know the Big Bang happened because of the redshift and all this kind of stuff, but like, and everything's
Because
moving
we
away
can
from
see
each
the
other.
universe expand.
Right,
because of it,
exactly. But like,
correct.
why? And we can see the remnants of it too.
Right.
But where is
Greg's
it
ego.
going? And that was one of the questions that they answer. Is that I think they call it hyperspace, which is another dimension where like the universe is expanding into a different dimension and it's actually curving, so that when you curve the piece of paper in the wormhole, you're curving it towards each other so you can get to a place far away quickly. But you're going through like another space, which is like this other hyperspace, like fifth dimension
I
kind
didn't see
of
this
thing.
movie.
So
Oh no, I mean the movie is by the way, I thought it was brilliant. There's a lot of science in it that you're like it's one of those films, and I think you had the reaction to this too, where you were like, there are a couple moments where I'm like, hey, can you spend maybe another 20 minutes explaining that to me? But they just physically can't. 'cause
I'm
there's
just happy they didn't.
So
They
much
didn't
in the
need to.
movie, right?
the movie was already an hour longer than it needed to be because of them having exposition.
They have exposition, right? Not the least of which was by Anne Hathaway, where you were like, man, I'll watch her talk about anything. Doesn't matter. But yeah, there's that. But then there's also the concept of gravity as well. That's another, like, I understand gravity. I get that that's caused by gravity. I don't know why. I don't know why bigger masses have more gravity, and I'm sure that can be easily explained.
Because it's bending space. It's bending the fabric of space more. That's the point.
Because
is that, like,
it's
a
taking
gas
up
giant,
more space.
Not necessarily,
No, more dense.
because a black hole, like a neutron star, is like some of the densest stuff in the universe, and it's nothing. It's really tiny.
This is fucking bullshit. So why time and space? Because gravity. Why gravity? Because time and space.
Well, black
I will
holes-
stand
I'm not
for this.
I'm not explaining
Science is
it very well.
lies.
Yeah.
Lies.
I mean, black holes are the most densest objects because it sucks everything in and just makes a really dense ball.
Black holes. I mean, that can that
Well, yeah,
be my
'cause-
answer? What
Yeah,
the fuck?
Black holes can be your answer.
I think the answer for everybody is is the same thing Colin brought up because no one can explain it and everybody's like, I don't understand. Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, that makes no. I mean, there's such simpler things that I don't understand. Like just magnets. They blow my mind. Like how the fuck that shit works.
That's a little bit easier to explain. I'm not going to try, but it's a little easier to explain. That
Yeah,
has to
that's
do
my
with
favorite
positive
thing
and
with that.
negatively
It was
charged
Insane Clown
particles.
Posse, right? Who put out that song? And everybody's
Magnets,
like,
how do they work?
And everybody's like, what a bunch of idiots. It's like, how do magnets work? Everybody's like, don't worry about it.
Same reason why everyone's always like, why is the sky blue? And I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. I don't
I'm
know
like
the fucking
refraction of the
Of-
atmosphere. There's that, but then there's also the concept of when I watched Cosmos, they talk about the
new one.
everything. Yeah, the one with Neil deGrasse Tyson, not
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan's. That was a little too hard for me to get into. It's a little dated, brilliant but dated, because he's like this. It's
Carl
like
Sagan's my dude.
What made the universe? And he's just him like in a grassy knoll with no pants on. He's just like, I'm Carl Sagan. I'll tell you why I'm not wearing pants.
Gravity.
After this break, black holes. No. They talk about the formation of what's happening in a star, right? And how there's so much nuclear fission happening that like particles, atoms at a subatomic level are being crammed together to make new elements, right? And that's how we find all the elements because
Up to iron,
right? And then once iron happens, it stops.
Then
it
it explodes,
right?
and then you get
almost
everything else.
instantaneous, right? Which you get everything else. That blows me away. I don't understand. It breaks my brain that you can have something that specifically you guys are talking about the neutron star, right? Which was the neutron star? Or which one was the most densest, the smallest, but it's still the
A neutron
heaviest?
star is an exploded star that didn't go nova, right? So I think that it's
Maybe let's talk about we'll take the black hole.
the
as an
black hole
example.
would be a black hole is a supermassive star.
Science, it breaks my brain that the concept of density. That's another one that kills me. Is that I'm so used to seeing objects relative to their weight, right? So I know that Kevin probably weighs a specific amount. I know I can probably guess his weight. I know I can guess your weight. But then the concept of having a marble that might weigh a metric ton because of how dense it is. But my brain can't process that, right? Because I know a ton to me is like a car, or a pound is supposed to look like this weight. That's about a pound. But like being able to have something that's the size of a pinprick, that's a pound. Blows me away, but that's possible, right?
Yeah, no, I mean the Big Bang 13.5 billion years ago, whatever it was, everything in the universe.
Right. That's nuts.
Coming
from one point.
In 1 point.
Yeah.
That's why it exploded.
That's crazy.
But
That's nuts to
presumably.
me.
I don't know. It was just Interstellar was full of really fascinating stuff to me that some of it I know, some of it I think I know and I can't explain well, which is probably that entire thing with gravity. But even like the wormhole stuff, which creates all sorts of plot points that we're not going to get into because I don't want to spoil it that much.
Yeah, I was gonna say what was the most unbelievable part of the movie for you though?
I mean, that's obvious.
No, I don't
Yeah.
mean I don't mean from a I don't understand how any of this shit's working. I mean like
It's
what
not
broke.
believable.
What was the one where you're like this? I don't know if that's necessarily how
I mean,
that
that's
would
an
work.
obvious
those two go
answer.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the library?
Yeah. No shit.
Yeah.
The one thing
Yeah,
that's
that
like,
really bothered
no,
me.
this is bullshit. Like, okay, the
we're
science.
spoiling this
do I
movie. We
understand
already
the
said
science?
spoilers, so we can
no,
talk about
I do
it.
not understand the science. Do I understand
He
the
actually
plot?
started off with like, we're gonna spoil some of the science, and now you want to go
All
right
okay,
into the
all
story.
fair enough. Fair enough.
But it's like from a plot, that movie, I was right there with them. It's just like, oh, time. Like they straight up say, time's gonna be different for this guy than this guy because science. And I'm like, okay, cool, I believe you. That's the plot. Like whether or not the science is accurate, I don't care. It's a fucking movie. But then that shit was just like, no, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kip Thorne argues that, and maybe because he's the guy who helped make it in terms of the science, says that it's pretty much all solid. And then you read things from
It's because they paid him $1 million. It's
and
like, I'm gonna back this up right
you see
now.
Close enough.
And then you see some people that talk about it and are like, there's a lot of things wrong with it. And one of the big things that people find wrong with it is actually what's happening on Earth, which I think is one of the funniest things is that there's all this extraordinary interstellar travel going on in the movie, and you're going through a wormhole next to Saturn that someone fucking put there.
Right.
Then you're in another galaxy and there's 12 planets and a fucking black hole called Gargantua and all these kinds of things. And I'm like, no, that's not the problem. The problem is that the Earth wouldn't end this quickly. That was like what a lot of
That was the bad science.
like some of the bad science apparently was that like oxygen wouldn't deplete for millions of years, even if like all these crops failed. That blights don't jump from crop to crop like that either. Like that doesn't happen. And it wouldn't happen at a rapid pace like that. They were saying. So I was reading a lot of
That's
weird.
hilarious.
I was reading a lot of weird science where they're like the science up there seems pretty sound. The science, it's all hypothetical. The science down here
We got some problems.
is a little more questionable. And I was like, that's interesting.
So you're telling me that Matthew McConaughey can't hack into a drone that's flying in the air? He can't do that.
I like that whole thing.
With the vacuum cleaner thing.
Yeah, this is like with his weird vacuum.
The bigger question to me, like, and it's I want to read more about Nolan's like idea for this universe. Is like there's this is a spoiler. I mean, people. Hopefully, you're not watching at this point if you really want to see Interstellar.
no.
But
They know. Don't touch me.
There's a scene where the Yankees are playing,
Yeah.
but it's like some bush league bullshit Yankee team in front of like 200 people or something like that.
Right.
And my bigger question about Interstellar is like, what the fuck happened to the planet? Like, where is everyone? How many people are left? And like, was there a war and famine and all these kinds of things? There's a lot of unanswered questions about how they got to that point because it seems like more sudden than it really was. I think in the lore of the
Right.
movie.
We're not dealing with post-apocalyptic, right? This is sort of like
pre-apocalyptic.
It's pre-apocalyptic, but it's not. It's a society that's declining. But it has not declined 100%, right? And so they say if you haven't seen Interstellar and you're like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Maybe pause this, watch the movie, and come back because you'll find this conversation fascinating, if not intriguing. But it's similar to like Road Warrior, right? Where it's like society's breaking down. They say that this is the last generation. Like Michael Caine has that line where he's like, if you don't do something about this right now, like your daughter's generation will be the last generation on Earth. Like that's it, and you're like, "Whoa, that's pretty severe." It seems like at that point, though, it's already too late. Like if it's literally we're at the last, like the second to last generation, we're kind of screwed, right? But that I guess is reason enough for someone to want to jet themselves into a wormhole.
Colin doesn't even do a reason. He'd jet into a wormhole.
Would you
right
go
now.
into a wormhole if there was a ship that allowed it? Would you do it, knowing that you'd probably be torn to pieces and compressed to the size of nothing?
It would be an incredible. I mean, them going through the wormhole was an awesome experience, like to watch.
That was cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm so fascinated. I've always been so fascinated by astronomy and space travel and all those kinds of things that I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of things I would do.
Always go in the wormhole.
I forget
Just good
where do
advice.
you sit on being the guy that would go to Mars?
Oh, the one-way trip?
Yeah.
I don't think I would. I think if I was an old man, I would probably do it.
Like 60,
Maybe a little older, yeah.
70?
Yeah,
You
somewhere
probably
around
wouldn't
there.
pass the physical requirements.
Yeah,
at 70,
exactly. I mean, that's the problem. But I mean, like to be the first person to step on Mars is pretty impressive.
I would like this too. I'd be like, okay, we're on Mars. We just landed, and then I would throw something, be like, what's that? And then I would, because I'd be goddamn if we went all that way and I wasn't the first motherfucker to step foot on that red planet.
But then you accidentally.
Trip and fall.
No,
into
you
the
accidentally
throws
throw
it through a window, yeah.
and then the spacecraft decompresses and you all die.
We went all this way, Scarpino.
It's like
Nine
it's a
months!
that's like a Twilight Zone episode.
That'd be hilarious.
I don't know. So that was like that. I just wanted to talk about that, and I guess we all kind of agree that maybe those are some of the biggest questions we have, or it's some of the I don't know because that movie was mind blowing. You know, I really had so much that I wanted to read a lot about it afterwards because I was like, this is and some of the stuff I know about already. I know about black holes. I know about time dilation and stuff like that, at least in a rudimentary way. But I want to read more about it because it's so physics is so fucked up that I can't believe anyone studies it and like actually comprehends it and then figures these things out with mathematical proofs. You know, because Einstein predicted a black hole long before we were ever able to really observe one, and we're not really still sure if we've really ever observed one. We think one's at the supermassive gargantuan like black holes at the center of the galaxy, for instance, but you can't see them. You can see their effect on other things.
Right. That's how they judge it, right? Because they see light literally bending or disappearing, right?
It's the same thing of like how you know a supernova happened in a certain place millions or billions of years ago is because you can just see the remnants of it.
Yeah, you can track the sort of outward particles.
So it's just like, I don't know, I'm fascinated by that how
Right, isn't that
smart
how they do
people
it?
are, man. It goes back to what I was saying, James, in the beginning, where it's just like, there's just these left brain people, man, are revolutionizing everything. You know, everything. And it's awesome. And so Interstellar was cool. People should go see it. I'm sure most of you have already, since you're way cooler than I am.
Yeah, it's you know what, the one thing I'm disappointed with in your situation, Colin, is that you didn't see it in IMAX.
Oh, fuck off with
So,
this.
that going
On
back
demand,
to
it's the future.
No, man, Interstellar really was an
it
experience.
actually
movie.
was. It was filmed. Parts of the film specifically were filmed in IMAX for a dramatic purpose. Like, and this is not really spoiling because everyone knows that he leaves his daughter behind. You can see it in the trailer. There's a fucking amazing scene, and I watched this with my wife, who obviously has a good close relationship with her father. And there's a great scene where he's like, I think her name's Merv or Marv. Murph. He's like, Murph, we got to solve this right now because I got to go. And she refuses to talk to him. Right, she's lying in bed, and he's like, I got to go. Like, you have to be okay with me leaving right now. And she doesn't say anything. And then he gets in his truck, and there's this amazing shot where the camera's on this fender driving away, and you see her run out of the house to say goodbye, but she misses her chance. And it's like, the second it goes to that fender shot, it takes up the entire 70-foot screen, and that fucking music, that like crazy organic synth, like it's. I think it's an actual organ. I don't think it was synth at all. I think it was a real organ, like wow, and you're just blasted with this huge image of this little girl running out of her house after her father, and that's all you get. And you're like, you can't get that. I don't care how good your TV is, you cannot get that on a 60-inch TV.
You fucked up, Nolan, putting it in there because everybody watches it on their TV.
Beautiful, so beautiful. And the
your
shots,
masterpiece looks like a fucking pile of garbage.
the shots where the ship is leaving the atmosphere and it's blowing out the like each rocket's like coming off of it as it kind of jettisons out of the stratosphere. It's so beautiful. So
I'll make you even angrier. I'm probably gonna watch it tomorrow on my iPad on the plane. So fuck you, movie makers. Tim, what's your topic?
I'm just glad you're watching movies, Greg.
Again, this is going to be the third walk to a topic that we've had today.
Good.
So here's my
I hate
story.
to do this, but I kind of go to the bathroom.
Tim, your topic.
Okay, it's going to be another walk-in one. Not Christopher
It's
Walken.
fine.
damn it.
What's
Yeah.
the topic, Tim?
All right, so last night I was with my girlfriend, and we were driving from my house to her house, which means we had to drive down 19th Avenue.
Yeah.
19th Avenue is not a highway, but it's like it's kind of like a how would you guys describe it? It's a 3-lane.
It's just a really big road.
You're not allowed to really like turn left on it, so it's one of the roads in San Francisco that's designed for driving down and going through quickly.
For the record,
Yeah.
it's 6 lanes. You count all the lanes, not 3 lanes. Not
Sorry, it's 3 lanes per direction.
One lane got hosed.
Just,
They're like,
I'm not being a jerk. I'm just trying to clarify.
Okay, so it's
Wait, I gotta stop you just for a second. That's not how you describe a highway. You don't count.
A 2-lane highway on a.
If you say the highway's 5 lanes, it's inferred that it's one side of the highway,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's valid.
I don't know.
I just didn't want you to be
never thought
attacked for
about
no
that.
reason.
I would
amazing.
describe it as a 3-lane street.
Okay.
Anyways, so it's 3 lanes and you just kind of go down. I've driven down this road my entire life, or at least whether I was on a bus or not, for the people that are giving me shit. So, driving down this goddamn street.
Who's giving you shit over there?
He's just
The,
preemptive.
the audience. I'm sure there's going to be somebody like, oh, you've been driving
She's
since
not
you were
giving you
born.
shit. She's fine.
Oh, hey. Hello. James' girlfriend's over there. James' girlfriend.
His girlfriend.
All right. So we're driving, and it's nighttime. And then all of a sudden, I just hear this, vroom, vroom, this fucking car just starts going crazy and like zigzagging in and out of stuff. And so instantly, me and my girlfriend, we're talking. And we're just like, hey, so we're in Fast and Furious right now. Like this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted this. Took about 2 seconds for me to be like, I've never wanted this. I want out. I want out right now. Because this guy was just zigzagging between everything. And we're like, all right, he's going to be gone. We're going to be good. But the problem with 19th Avenue,
You keep
lot of
catching up
traffic.
to him. You keep catching up to
if
him.
you don't hit it at the exact right time to get all green lights, you're just going to keep hitting reds. And this guy and us were stuck in that. Then all of a sudden, he starts racing some motherfucker. So there's 2 cars racing down 19th, getting stuck at every red light because there's too many cars in front of them, so they can't zigzag that fast. So now I'm stuck literally in Han's death scene in Tokyo
Oh my
Drift.
God.
It's
And
the
I'm just
worst,
like,
heartbreaking.
holy crap. And it went from super cool to super scary. Then a 3rd car got involved. And that is when I was like, I'm fucking done.
Yeah.
Because that car, we're like, is this really happening right now? And I look over, the car's license plate was
Daihan.
one. It was like 11L, a capital LL 11LL whatever. So it's like it all looked, or not capital, capital I is what I meant to say, to just like confuse cops.
Oh, interesting.
And I was
Smart.
like, he's a fucking like legit racer. This is some crazy shit.
Racer X right there.
Yeah, it was
man.
clever.
It was
That's
fucking
clever.
scary, man. I was just like, damn, we were gonna die. We didn't die, but eventually we, when we got towards her house, we just saw a shit ton of cop lights, and just 2 of the dudes were like pulled over. But
No
the
shit.
Fucking 11L
One
Racer
L,
X
another
one.
one.
He got away. He's
That
a winner.
motherfucker, he's out there somewhere.
Like it was either
He's the real DK.
11111 LLLL or some combination of that and eyes.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's like, oh, that guy. But then again, it's like, I was thinking about this a lot. It's like, that's a good idea, but it's also, I feel like you're going to get pulled over before you even do anything wrong because you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, okay. That's a very unnecessary story that I just felt the need to say.
Now,
To
my
say
real
that-
topic is groceries.
So we drove to her house, which now is the segue to this.
Right.
I go into her house and I look down and she has the Kim Kardashian selfie book. And I was like,
Okay.
Interesting. And it was a present for her little sister who's just graduating high school. And she got her that, and she got her some poetry books. So it's like a little bit of,
Sweet and sour.
High art and
you
low
get
art.
the sweet and sour. Exactly. It's just like, it's symbolic of graduating high school. So I'll start looking at this book because
The poetry
human
book or the
being.
Kim Kardashian? Never mind, I know the answer to that.
exactly
Continue.
right. Exactly
Continue.
right. So I'm looking at it. And literally all it is it's a book of her selfies. Have you guys heard about this?
No, I'm unfamiliar.
Really? Oh man. Okay.
Sorry to offend you.
She released a book that's just her selfies. And I started skimming through it, and it's like they're all there. The leaked naked pictures, she fucking was like, I'm fucking making money off of this. All the black pages are like the fun ones. So it's like, okay, cool. There's a shit ton of selfies in this book. And I'm looking through, I'm like, this is not interesting at all. Instantly thought, me and Nick need to sell a selfie book. That's going to be one of my goals, is to
First
sell a
thing I
selfie
thought.
book. This is fucking genius.
Yeah.
Then I was like, wait a minute. We can make an audiobook of our selfie book. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, we should make an audiobook of the Kim Kardashian selfie book where we just describe to people each picture.
Yeah.
This is, oh my God, this
That's
is the best
smart.
fucking idea ever. So my topic is, what are the worst ideas you ever had?
That's a great transition.
What did the racing have to do with any of that?
I thought,
Getting to the house.
like, it seemed like the racing story could have led to this exact same topic.
What?
Because it was a bad decision for that guy to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. No.
Are you going to do this Kim Kardashian video?
I don't know. I mean, now it's less about doing that because I've slept over the idea. I've thought about it a bit, and I've decided maybe it's not the best idea.
I don't know. You and Nick reading through,
But
like,
then again-
the camera on you, and you have the book, and you describe what you're
It is-
seeing.
so it
Like a
it
bedtime
reminded
story?
me.
Why
One
do
of
we
my
steal this book? Because I'm not paying for it. I'm not buying this book. We gotta steal it.
one of my favorite YouTube videos is by Team Genius. These like old school YouTube dudes, and one dude's sitting on a couch, and the other guy's reading a Batman comic, and he's like, "Oh fuck, I wish I could read it." He's like, "Oh, sorry, I only got one. Here, I'll read aloud." So he reads the comic book aloud, which doesn't work because there's pictures.
Portillo. God damn it.
Almost took the whole
thing down.
He took the entire Matrix with him almost just now.
But he sits there and he describes each panel. He's like, yeah, and then there's a shadowy figure that drops. Oh, next panel, it's the Batman. It is the Batman. That's hilarious. But yeah, if we did that, I think it'd be good. It'd be funny. But what I really want to do is sell a selfie book of us.
I really want it to be a bedtime story.
Like
I think it
a
would be
bedtime
great. Yeah.
story told by selfies. I just want us to get on a New York Times bestseller list.
Oh, I definitely want that.
And
The
just
selfie book isn't the one that's going to do it, guys.
I think it might be. And it's going to be social commentary.
Is this Kim Kardashian book on the bestseller list?
I'm sure it was.
Sure it was.
Okay.
She has a lot of
How
fans.
old is it? How old is it?
I've never heard of it though. That's the
There's-
craziest
you,
thing.
You really haven't heard of it? You?
I'm
I
surprised.
don't know shit about this
I'm
woman.
going to call my wife. Literally, going to call my wife when we leave this table, and be like, "Why didn't you tell me about this? You're fired."
Yeah.
Whoa.
man.
Fired
She's
as
gonna
your
be like
wife?
this, go fuck yourself. I'm taking half your money. I'm like, no, I love you so much.
Yeah.
You're like, half zero, still zero.
You
Hang up
can't
real
take
quick.
half of it. She's like, I got half.
Anyway, so this is our worst decisions. What are
Not
bad
decisions. It's like what
Ideas.
bad ideas?
Yeah, I guess the topic is more just ideas. Are there ideas that you've had, whether they're good or bad, that you're like,
Last weekend, I was around a couple friends, and the father and the kid all had man buns, and I thought for 1 second, maybe I should grow a man bun. But I dismissed that idea pretty quickly because you have to actually have like pretty full hair for that even to be pulled off. You can't have a receding hairline and have a man bun. I just don't think it's gonna work.
There was a time where I had a steady job, and 3 of my friends were like, "We should quit and make
Yeah.
YouTube videos all day." And I'm like, "That's a good idea."
Yeah.
You're like, I'm sure we won't run out of topics for the one podcast we do.
Yeah.
I wore
like
jean shorts all the way through college.
Yeah, that's.
I did too.
We got to bring out some more of your
cargo
pictures at some
shorts.
point.
Oh, there's
Did
hundreds
they
of
get
them.
any better than the ones that we showed already?
I showed pretty much I think the gems.
The one where you look like Rosie O'Donnell?
Yeah. Remember, somebody tried to insult me. I've never told this story on the air. Somebody tried to insult me once, but you look like Rosie O'Donnell. When this is a photo I put up or whatever. I'm like, I don't care. I love at Rosie, and at Rosie followed me, so you can all go fuck yourself. I'm getting followed by Rosie O'Donnell. What are you doing with your life? I hope your kids and
Trying
wife
to
are
get
cool.
followed by Ellen
or Ricky Lake?
or Ricky Lake. Ricky Lake's hot.
Ricky
that out
Lake
there.
was hot. Remember Ricky Lake was an actress.
Yep. before she had
her show, and she was like somewhat obese and stuff like that, and she was like, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
she,
you think
and
Hairspray.
Yeah, Hairspray. That's a good example. And then she was like, you know, really lovable, kind of nice actress. And then she had her show, and she like, I don't know if she had surgery or just slimmed down.
I
want to
say she did do the gastric bypass.
Because Carney Wilson also did the gastric,
right,
and she also had a show.
Yeah,
but
that's
but
right.
Ricky Lake
Jesus.
had her show in the '90s. I used to love Ricky Lake, because my mom used to love it. I used to watch it with her when she was like folding the laundry or whatever she was doing, and. Ricky Lake was special, but then Ricky Lake disappeared off the face of the planet. We never saw her again.
I think
Made her
she,
money and ran.
Yeah,
Ricky Lake.
I often wonder about that.
About
do,
Ricky
because-
Lake?
No, just about
At least
celebrities.
once a day.
I mean, obviously, there's a number of reasons why celebrities kind of fade out of mainstream culture, right? But specifically, I was thinking about Christian Slater the other day because he's kind of making a comeback. I was thinking about it because I'm reading Queen of the Damned for no reason. Like I said, I just found a copy of it outside of my apartment. I'm like, I'll read this. Never read a Vampire Chronicles book. Maybe have seen Interview with the Vampire twice. So I kind of have a little bit great movie, but there's 3 books in between that and Queen of the Damned. So I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here, but I'm keeping reading it. Anyway, his character comes back in that. And I'm like, what happened to Christian Slater, right? Like, because he went away for a while, and now he's on like Archer, and he's on 2 or 3 other TV shows and stuff like that.
He was one of those guys who had a bunch of different shows like pop up on ABC or NBC and then just get canceled.
Yeah, but that was recently. That was in the last like 5 years. So what happened between like his last big hit, like, pump up the volume, right? And then like there's like a 10-year gap. Was it substance abuse? Was it like, could he just really not get a gig? I find it hard to believe that Christian Slater wasn't getting gigs.
I think some people just want to stop working. I mean, like, I think that like Ricky Lake's a good example. Who the hell knows what really happened with Ricky Lake? But
I don't know.
Ricky Lake had a talk show for 8 years. She probably made $15-20 million plus, and then you're like, all right, I'm done.
Maybe she's like, I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to have kids and just hang out.
Yeah, like I feel like I think there are
that.
people that grind and like to work, like to act, like to do all those things. And then I think there are guys that you see come and go, and they're like, I'm fine. Like I always talk about this just with Greg McElroy, who was a Jets quarterback. He only played in like one game, and he was only on the Jets for like 2 years, and he was 24, and he's like, I'm done. You know, and I think we talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
He's like, he got his $800,000 or whatever, and he doesn't want to. He knows he's never going to play. He's probably going to get cut at some point, so he retired. And he took his money. He's just like, I'm done now, and I'm going to go do something else, like start a business or whatever. So I think that people do that in all walks of life, you know. And I think it's just easier for an actor like Christian Slater made millions of dollars. Like maybe Christian Slater doesn't really need to work.
No. And after his highly publicized brushes with the law,
Never mind.
Slater's standing as a major movie star began to fade. This is in 2000. You're with this. In 2000, Slater married Ryan Haddon, the daughter of the 70s model, somebody we don't know. The couple had 2 children. It's great. Nobody cares. In 2003, Haddon was arrested for assaulting Slater at a Hard Rock Cafe while on a trip in Las Vegas.
Why were they at a Hard Rock Cafe?
Haddon
That's why I
allegedly
don't go to
threw
Hard Rock Cafes anymore.
Haddon allegedly threw a glass bottle and gashed Slater's neck open. Oh. Slater had to get 20 stitches in his neck. They announced their separation. Yeah.
It doesn't say that he really did anything
that's
wrong.
why it's
though.
weird.
He might just
here's his arrests and convictions.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, he's got a whole bunch. 89, 94, 97.
That's when he was still big, though.
2005.
So 2005 is when.
What was the 2005 one?
2005, Slater was arrested in Manhattan, New York, after he allegedly sexually harassed a woman on the street. A video of Slater being arrested was recorded and shown on television. Slater was charged with third-degree sexual abuse and was held at the 19th Precinct in Manhattan. Charges were later dropped on the condition that Slater kept out of trouble for 6 months.
Only for 6 months. Go ahead and do something in 7 months.
Right.
Well,
Your month is 6 months, 1 day, you're good. So that's probably substance abuse.
It's the traditional thing where he didn't stop making movies. You stopped watching him for some reason, but his career, he has a couple movies a year here.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying is like, I guess that's true. I guess that it's all relative because now that like Netflix is things like Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these video services are like proliferating, you're starting to see where I saw a movie the other day. I was like, when the fuck did Bruce Willis, John, like, or not John Lithgow, like Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, and who's the guy from Grosse Pointe Blank?
John Cusack.
John Cusack's in like 50 movies a year. I'm like, when did they do a movie together? And it's just on. You start watching it, you're like, oh, this is terrible. That's why it never got in theaters.
Yeah.
But these guys do, like Morgan Freeman and Bruce Willis do a ton of movies. But what's the last Bruce Willis movie you saw in the theaters?
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
Maybe G.I. Joe 2? If you can call that
If you even call that a movie.
I certainly wouldn't.
Yeah, but it's pretty fascinating. But like in terms of Ricky Lake, yeah, it would be fascinating to be like what happened? Because 9 out of 10 times it's probably, hey, I was super rich, and Greg's going back to Wikipedia. I was super rich, and I got into drugs, and I had to cool out for like a decade, and then now I'm trying to mount a comeback, right?
I just think it's more like I just feel like if you're in a situation like that, and you're just financially smart, you could just hit a few movies, and get some points on maybe some of those movies and just be done. And maybe you just don't love the acting that much.
That's true, and my wife has said that. Where my wife grew up in L.A. and she worked for a very popular dance troupe, so she's been in films. And I often asked her, I'm like, why did you quit? And she's like, well, I worked in Hollywood as a dancer in TV and film for the better part of like 10 years. And she's like, and after a certain point, I just didn't want to do it anymore. It's hard on my body. It's hard going out on audition after audition and getting rejected, or it's even harder when you get the job and it's fun, but nothing's fun after 18 hours. Like everything you do ceases to be fun on the third day of an 18-hour day where you're like, I can't see straight and I have to physically be on point. Physically, I have to do something. So she's like, yeah, I just got worn down. My body just quit out on me. And I'm like, I get that. So acting is probably the same thing. If you're not like a huge celebrity, I can understand why you're like, I'm kind of done with this. But like, I don't know. There's just a part of me that says if I hit that all important Ricky Lake status,
that's the goal.
Yeah,
I would never
status.
let that go.
I think there was a film or a documentary. I can't remember what it's about. It's about bit actors, about guys like that or women that you know.
Yeah.
But that you wouldn't be able to name them, but they're in like a bunch of movies, and they all live really well too. Like they've never had a leading role in anything.
Oh no,
and like they just do their thing, and they just make their money, and they bounce.
For the record, same thing with Ricky Lake. She just kept going. You just weren't watching.
No, she just never did stuff.
She did her show from 93 to 2004.
Oh wow, I didn't know it was on that long.
Yeah, and then 2006 to 2010 are other projects. She was she went on to host CBS's limited series Game Show Marathon, which recreated classic game shows with celebrity contestants. I'm surprised you weren't a big fan.
I would have been if I'd have known it was happening. I don't watch Channel 2 from
October
the hours of 1 o'clock to 2
2007, Lake
p.m. every day.
appeared in the Lifetime movie Matters of Life and Dating.
Yeah,
So
but
there.
okay, if you're doing Lifetime movies, no, I'm not bashing Lifetime movies because
You're
my
about
goal,
to.
hopefully one day, is that they make the Kind of Funny Lifetime movie, and you get Harry Connick Jr. and you can be Rosie O'Donnell.
Thank you.
But that's not exactly mainstream, right? You're not doing Hairspray like with John Travolta, and it's not being released theatrically across 5,000 screens. So like,
Well,
there's
she was in
something.
Hairspray.
What's that?
She had in the recreation of Hairspray.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. She was with John Travolta, was in that as well. She was in Hairspray. Like she did that movie, but like it's weird to look at people's careers and go like you think that like, oh, you're a AAA actor or you're an A-list actor, you're gonna stay on top of the world forever, but it's just not the case. Like Christian Slater in the late 80s and early 90s was the shit. Like he's Christian Slater, man. Like you're like, oh, he's a huge celebrity. He was in every magazine. Like he was dating he dated every hot actress that was kind of, you could tell had drug problems. I guess that starts to answer my own question. Ish, but it's just fascinating that people fade away a little bit. Specifically, I was watching The Client the other day, and this is another one where I was like, "Oh, this movie's great. What happened to Brad Renfro? Remember Brad Renfro? He was in a couple movies, and you're like, this kid's awesome. He's a great actor." And I was like, God, he must have just quit acting. No, it turns out he died of a heroin overdose.
Damn.
So there's that.
Classic Brad Renfro.
Classic Renfro.
Jesus Christ, that's a good movie though.
It's a good movie.
What was the topic?
It doesn't matter
Bad
anymore.
ideas.
It's
Bad
over.
ideas.
Bad ideas / Ricky
it.
Lake.
Yeah, you just put Christian
take a
Slater.
picture of Ricky Lake.
Christian
Yeah.
Slater and Ricky Lake's worst ideas is the topic. The
Put
headline
a
there
picture
for
of
that.
Carney Wilson on there too.
Coming from the tech standpoint, I get pitched a lot of ideas for like people to like help them or whatever it is. And we have this game where we just combine random buzzwords and try to make apps out of it. Or say it's the blank for blank.
Oh.
So it'd be like, it's like the Facebook for Uber.
Uh-huh.
Just like with different companies. It literally makes no sense.
No, but it sounds really.
That sounds like a
You know,
fucking
but
good
every
thing.
once in a while though, right? That does make sense. Like, oh, it's the Airbnb for, I don't know,
Uber?
For Uber, yeah.
prostitutes.
I will say this.
everything's Uber.
The Facebook for Uber is actually kind of a genius idea, and here's why. I had my first experience the other day with Uber Pool. Now, I have taken Uber Pool before, but I've never been matched with someone that gave a fuck. It was like the guy's like, hey, that's it, we go. But when we were on the way to the live event rehearsal, I got an Uber Pool, and there was a girl there, and I could tell was like quasi interested. She was like, hey, where are you going? I'm so-and-so. Introduce yourself. We talked the entire way there. And so I know a ton of stuff about this girl. I know where she works, how long she's been there, what she's doing tonight.
Yada yada yada.
Like,
Nick's getting a divorce.
no, yada yada. My wife left me. But so a social media network
No, I mean,
specifically for that is hilarious.
So that's a thing.
That
Is
is
that
a
really?
Uber
yeah.
Pool is used for dating.
No, Uber Pool is 100% used for dating. It's
not what it was made for.
But
Let's
also
smack
no,
up
but
the
there's an
stats.
app that people, it's like misconnections specifically from Uber and Lyft and all that
Oh,
stuff.
that's so funny. That's
And
so
it's
funny.
Beautiful.
Yeah, interesting.
Tim, that was a good topic.
Thank you.
So good it was sponsored. Loot Crate is helping us out, pay the bills once again. You can head over to lootcrate.com/KF and enter the code KF to save $3 on your new subscription. Of course, we do these unboxings every so often. We have them floating around. I enjoy the Loot Crate. It had a lot of cool
last
things
month
in it.
they had a fucking badass Power Ranger shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, I really
You
like
want to know
it.
about the next one?
Huh? Yeah. What is the next one?
The next one is cyber.
Cyber.
And you know what cyber means?
What's it mean?
What comes next after cyber?
You know what I'm thinking, but what are you thinking, Greg?
June's theme is cyber. This month, Loot Crate invites you to join the cyber revolution with an assortment of cool tech-themed. Hey, this is like you. Like you. Tech-themed collectibles from a wide array of awesome franchises. It's a self-aware singularity-fueled, that sounds terrifying, singularity-fueled celebration of all the robots, androids, cyborgs, and programs gone mad, bent on our annihilation. And the few who keep fighting the good fight to save us.
That's
This
weird.
sounds like our nightmare.
That's exactly what I was thinking after the word cyber.
Oh, yeah, well, so you're
Yeah,
thinking
that was
it. Okay, great. Good to know that the singularity was immediately what jumped there. Okay, cool. They're going to have exclusive items from Terminator Genesis, Borderlands 2, and more, including an exclusive t-shirt you won't find anywhere else. So go to lootcrate.com/KF and enter the code KF to get $3 off a new subscription. Thank you, Loot Crate, for continuing to help Kind of Funny grow. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is another episode of the Game Over Greg show.
Yeah.
Are you trying to think of this?
I blacked out.
I have it all the time.
I blacked out for a second there.
only
James,
do
thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
So
for
what's
having me.
happening? You're working on the forums. You've been working on the app.
Yep.
Big question: what's happening with the Android part?
Yep.
And when are we getting mods? That's what everybody goddamn asks us.
Mods takes 2 seconds. So
All right,
I'll
we should
do
get some
that
mods.
right now. I just didn't know who to upgrade the accounts for, but that'll be
Zyger?
done way before then.
That was my bad. We told him now.
As far as the Android app goes, when is this airing?
That'll go up on our Patreon on Friday.
Friday. The Android app may be live by then.
Hey!
Yay.
Maybe live.
Maybe's the key word.
Maybe. Hopefully.
We're not promising you anything. Okay.
Kevin says it looks good. He's the only one who cares about Android.
Yeah.
This is all for Kevin.
Except, of course, Kevin on his phone, he has to hack his own phone just to start it.
That
That's
true?
how bad his Android phone is.
It's not bad. I hacked it. It's stop. It's rooted.
It's rooted. Like a tree?
Yeah, just like
But it's a phone.
That's
got a
awesome.
custom firmware.
Are you still enjoying talking into your watch to send text messages?
Okay, Google.
Text messages like this one. Hey, Greg, I forgot my Starbucks in your house. Keys cost up for me, please. Then resends it. Hey, Greg, I forgot my Starbucks in your house. Keys cost up for me, please.
Because it sends it like 5 times.
So,
I like to imagine he did it again and it just said the exact same fucking thing.
and you still hit send with that.
Yeah,
thing
he's like, I
going.
don't give a shit. Whatever.
Remember,
So-
you can get the app right now if you get a real phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it's known as.
Works on your iPad, too. We'll bring it over there.
So we're working on that, and then got some other cool things we'll be working on.
All right,
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much for your help, James.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you so
for
much.
being a best friend.
Of course.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a best friend. Remember, this is the Game Over Greggy show. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather around this table.
You son of a bitch.
I like getting you
son
all
of
in
a
the trap.
bitch.
Ah, dang, 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 dang.
Thank you for doing a giant Venus flytrap for everyone that's listening at home. You went like this. Oh, I did the same thing.
Damn it.
Patreon.com/kindafunny.
Thank you, Nick.
Or topic by topic, day by day on YouTube.com/kindafunny before we post the whole thing as a podcast and video for your amusement. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.
I'm not sitting by Greg anymore.
You got nowhere to
I'm
go.
not sitting by him anymore.